I'm here. This is Cindy Spoljarek.
Good evening. A larger than anticipated assembled gathering here in Westfield City Hall. It's been a while since I've seen so many faces. Call the March 1, 2021 Advisory Plan Commission meeting to order. Start off if staff would please confirm the presence of a quorum.
Do you want me to go ahead or hold on a minute? Do you want me to go?
Are we
do you want
live?
me- Would you like me to go ahead? Yes, I can.
Yeah, we're live. Let's
Okay.
move on.
Ms. Berkman? Here. Mr. Graham?
Present.
Mr. Horkay?
Here.
Mr. Johns?
Here.
Dr. Kelleher?
Here.
Mr. Maui?
Here.
Mr. McCarty?
Here.
Mr. Schmitz?
Here.
Ms. Spoljarek?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. First item of business after the quorum is approval of minutes, of which we have two sets tonight. Meetings of February 1 and February 16 are both awaiting approval. We can do them together if there are no comments. If we need to discuss anything, we'll separate them. Does anybody who's had opportunity to review all of our minutes have any questions, comments, concerns, corrections, anything of the sort? That being the case, do we have motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of February 1st,
Is now
2021,
joining.
and the minutes of February 16th, 2021, as written.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second by Commissioner Graham and Maui. Will staff please, are enough of us here that we can just do this by voice, or should we go ahead and do a roll call?
Let's just do roll.
Okay.
Ronald here.
All in favor of approving both sets of minutes, please signify by saying aye.
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 Cindy Spoljarek, did we hear you?
Yes, aye.
Okay,
I'm an aye too.
I heard that as well. Unanimous approval. Will staff please review the rules and procedures for tonight's meeting?
Yes, due to the COVID-19 emergency as declared by the Governor of Indiana, the format and conduct of the meeting has been modified to comply with executive orders regarding the conduct of public meetings, public hearings, and public gatherings. Relevant portion of the Indiana open door law have been amended or suspended during the pendency of this emergency. For our public hearing items, the meeting will have the following structure. The department will summarize the petition, then the petitioner will be given up to 15 minutes to present to the Plan Commission. The president will open a public hearing, and all individuals will be given 3 minutes to speak. The public hearing will be closed when all interested members of the audience have had a chance to be heard, and all emails received during the public hearing have been provided to Plan Commission members. The petitioner will then have a chance to respond to comments, and the Plan Commission will follow with any comments, questions, or concerns regarding the petition. For our non-public hearing items, the meeting will have the following structure. The department will summarize the petition and highlight any changes or modifications since the item was last before the Plan Commission. The department will also describe what action, if any, is necessary to be taken. The petitioner will be given up to 15 minutes to present any changes, and the Plan Commission will then act upon the petition. For our general rules of conduct this evening, we ask that you please not disrupt the proceedings in any way. If you need to have a private discussion, we ask that you please quietly exit the room. Please silence your devices at this time, and again, if you must answer them, please quietly exit the room. If you are attending in person and wish to speak in regards to a petition scheduled for a public hearing, then please fill out a yellow card, which are available both in the back of the room and up here by the podium, and bring it to me prior to the presentation being heard. During your comments, please state your name and address into the microphone for the record, and we ask that you not repeat any previously stated comments. Your presentation will be timed, and you will be advised when there is approximately 30 seconds remaining. If you are not attending in person this evening and would like to submit public comments, please email them to planners@westfield.in.gov with the petition name or number included in the subject line. Those comments will then be forwarded to Plan Commission members and the petitioner. We would like to remind everyone to please speak directly into the microphone so your comments can be put onto the record. And also, please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob, Pam, this is Jenny.
Hello, Jenny.
I don't have a screen. I just have a picture of John Zant. Hi, John.
Yeah, yeah, Jenny, this is Kevin. I'm hearing that as well. We're working on that. My understanding is you can see the screen on the YouTube stream, so that may be an option until we figure out what's going on the Microsoft Teams platform.
Okay, I'll give it a whirl. I can hear you, so that works.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Before we move on to the approval of the consent agenda items, two things. The Harmony PUD amendment for a sign change, which was the last of the public hearings, has been continued. So if anybody is present in the meeting that has no interest in anything else and was going to otherwise hang around for that, you're free to go, but you're welcome to stay. We also, I would like to offer the floor to Beth Copeland, our new attorney, for an introduction and to actually speak to something that she has already done on our behalf that will be distributed to the APC tomorrow. Beth?
Good evening to all of you. It's a pleasure to finally meet all of you in person. Can you hear me? No? Okay, now can you hear me? Okay, thank you. It's a pleasure to meet all of you in person. I've heard your voices for the last 6 weeks, and I think I know them all well, but it's nice to have a name with a face. Again, my name is Beth Copeland. I am your new attorney. I'm representing both the APC and the BZA. And I am here to help this board in every capacity possible to ensure that you make the most responsive decisions that you can within the confines of the law. That being said, I know this is a new relationship, and with that, there will be some growing pains. I can provide my contact information for all of you, so if you have legal questions moving forward, I'm happy to answer those. There will be times that I email all of you as a board, and I would ask that you please always remember that our communications are privileged. Please do not ever hit reply all and respond and nor forward any of my communications on. Even if just one of you does that, that breaks the privilege, and that's one of the benefits of this relationship. That being said, one of the tasks that I was asked to do was the UDO amendment that you will be considering at a later date. I was asked to give a legal opinion on that. I have done that. I have a memo that's been drafted. You will be receiving that, but we thought it might be a good reminder to everyone on this board that that communication, like my emails to you, are privileged. They are intended for this APC board only and should not be shared with anybody else. Once you read it and have had an opportunity to digest it, I'm more than happy to talk with you about it. And so I look forward to getting to know all of you and working with you. I did planning and zoning in Kokomo for 5 years, and I currently do it for Mooresville. So I've got some planning and zoning underneath my belt, but excited to get to know you and you to get to know me.
Thank you. First item of business is the consent agenda item, of which there is only one. Shall be materials. We have had the opportunity to see it. There's no reason for a presentation. We need to move forward to a motion to present as associated in the staff report.
I'd like to
Bob?
go,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Cindy Spiljarek. I just wanted to point out one thing in the consent agenda, and this is because I did let staff know, I believe. There's a bunch of Colorado blue spruce in the landscape plan, and it's just something I wanted to point out that information from the state arborist at one point did say those were all going to die in our state. So I just wanted to point that out and maybe have the petitioner consider that.
Cindy, this is Randy Zentz. Thank you so much. I am more than happy to speak with the landscapers and make a switch on that. I was not aware of that, but I've seen that a little bit in my own backyard.
I'm so sorry, Randy. Thank you.
No problem.
Randy, I want to confirm that. I've been told by several landscapers that because of climate change, they're all going to die. And I know the 4 in my backyard have already done it.
Well, we'll talk to the landscapers and get the right product in there and make sure we double check with planning and Public Works to ensure that we've chosen something that's acceptable.
All right, not the poster child way to handle a consent agenda item. Things like that should have been brought ahead of time, but I think we've covered it. I've got 3 of them that died as well. Had them taken down last week. We're ready for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
This is Kelleher. I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. There's no further discussion, which there shouldn't be. Staff, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bergman?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Horkay?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes?
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Ms. Boljaric?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to items of business, of which there are 3. Item number 1 is the
Randy Zentz.
Is now exiting.
Goodbye. Item number 1 is the Somerset PUD 2012-PUD 15. Pam Howard presenting.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the commission. Pam Howard with the Community Development Department. Before you this evening, we have for approval a PUD to be known as Somerset. The 61.4 acre site is located southwest of the intersection of 186th Street and Spring Mill Road and is currently zoned AGSF1. The proposed ordinance would permit 152 single-family dwellings and include specific standards to accommodate the proposed development. This item received a public hearing on December 7th, and several changes have been made to the proposed ordinance and exhibits since that meeting. These changes were outlined in the staff report and will also be discussed by the petitioner during their presentation. This item is eligible again for your recommendation this evening. Paul Munoz with Silverthorne Homes is here to make a presentation, after which both he and I will be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Paul Munoz, for the record, 9225 Harrison Park Court, Indianapolis, Indiana. Here tonight to speak regarding some of the changes that have been made to the Somerset PUD. Am I able to flip through the slides from here? Okay. So just to recap on this is the overview of the development. As you can see, we have Spring Orchard to your west. We have commercial in the Garden Market and an ag use to your east, as well as Orchard View to your south with the Redwood project just kind of southwest in that corner. Next slide, please. This is the original layout as it was first proposed. It's approximately 61 acres, currently zoned as Ag SF1. We are proposing a PUD with a density of 2.5, and as she said earlier, the number of homes would be 152 for that development. Preservation of about 14 acres of open space, and that does include passive and active recreation areas, which we will get into here in just a second. And this is our traditional single-family product from Silverthorne. We have 12 floor plans. 4 of those are brand new that we just came out with this year, both single and 2-story. Those range in size from 1,800 square foot to 3,200 square foot. There are customization options available, along with durable construction materials and quality features throughout the house. As you can see, this is the new proposed development. We do have to thank Mr. Johns and Mrs. Boljaric for working with us over the last several months to help kind of address some of the concerns that we heard from the first meeting. Some of those would include architectural enhancements. We did have the enhancements on all of those lots that back up to the 186th Street as well as Spring Mill Road. Added in additional commitments for all of those on corner lots to add enhancements to those. Road connectivity. there is some concern this is, because of its layout and because of it being an infill project with limited use and limited space within the site, we are connecting to 4 other currently existing road connections, 2 of those from Spring Orchard and 2 of those from Orchard View. We were able to jog the street layout a little bit to add a little bit more contour and curvature to those roads so they were not all just completely straight. We did have some limitations in doing so because of a larger sewer easement along the south side of the property that takes quite a bit of that area kind of southeast on the site as it currently sits. Amenities were an issue that we heard in the first Plan Commission meeting. These, all of the residents within this development will have access to the amenities within Spring Orchard as part of that, but we did also take 2 locations. One of them is kind of to the southeast. That's going to be a pocket park with a gazebo and plantings and a trail. The other one is to the west. That's actually going to be a trailhead as the trail comes around the pond. We're putting in a playground as well as a picnic area and plantings there as well. So that trail will continue all the way around the pond and then south into Spring Orchard, where it will have connectivity clear over to Casey Road through the Redwood project that's currently there. One of the commitments that was actually it's going to be made verbally because we just found out about it yesterday, was there is a connection in Orchard View. It's a small sidewalk that is between several of those homes. We did have a member from the community meeting that pointed that out to us, and that is our fault. We've got to get that language into the PUD, but Mrs. Spoljaric did point that out to us, and we have committed that we will make sure to make that connection to that sidewalk through our trail system. One of the other things that was brought up as part of that was buffering. The area between us and Noah's property there along the kind of the northeast corner there, we have worked with him and have acquired, or not really acquired, but worked with him to get an easement that will be recorded as part of this project if this project is approved, that puts a 30-foot buffer on his property along those homes that are a little bit closer to the property line. So in that area, you will see a 30-foot buffer that will include mounding and plantings on the north side, and then the natural tree preservation line will stay. If you've ever had a chance to go out and drive the site, you'll know that that's very, very dense. A lot of mature trees are currently along that tree line. Those will all stay unless they are dead, dying, decaying, or invasive. The rest of it will continue. Those to the other side, there will be the natural tree line and then a buffer on our side. There will be a 30-foot buffer that will include trees and shrubs and plantings as well. And that property line to the south on those properties is about 75 feet, so there will be additional green space behind those homes as well. Next slide. As you can see here, these are 2 depictions of the park spaces that we are currently looking at. Both of them have some connectivity to the trail system as it works itself through. One of the other trail connections we plan on making, and we're working with Noah on, depending on how utilities lay out, is there'll be a connection from our project to his project at the point at which it is approved or he brings plans forward. We're going to work to try to make sure we have some connectivity to that so that people can access that from not only our development but the other developments around there through a trail system. Next slide. So this kind of shows a little bit more of a close-up of that natural buffer. That will be recorded as part of the project. We have worked with him. I believe he has submitted a letter of support to staff that once this project approved, we will have that recorded with a full design showing that 30-foot easement and the landscaping standards that are within that easement as well. So if for whatever reason his project doesn't continue to move forward, if ours does, we will still be able to have that recorded easement in place. So to conclude, we believe this is an excellent location. It's an infill project on a site that is a good transition from its adjacent uses with multifamily kind of to the southwest, as well as Orchard View and Spring Orchard that are slightly more dense projects, both to the south and to the west as well, transitioning up through that development up towards the commercial that is currently at 186th and Spring Mill Road. Again, we're currently connecting because of the road system as it currently sits to 4 other existing stubs out of both Spring Orchard and Orchard View. As part of that, I will bring up one other issue that was brought up by Mrs. Spoljaric, and that was the connection through Spring Orchard, and that it seemed to be more of a thoroughfare style, and she was worried about speed. As part of one of the changes we made within the PUD, and you'll be able to see on the concept plan, is that we are doing bump outs on all of those intersections along that Ogalla Drive extension from Spring Orchard through the development to help slow down traffic and provide better connectivity through the walking path that is currently there and through the sidewalks. You know, diverse housing options, again, we have 12 different models. It's going to be roughly about 50 to 60 different elevations that people will be able to choose through this. That does not include brick and siding styles as well, and diversity. Again, durable materials, and there will be no vinyl. We are agreeing to that as part of this development. Quality development, again, this is thoroughly laid out. There's a lot of limitations to this project because of the size of it, the scope of
Is
it,
now exiting.
what we currently have as adjacent uses, and the easements that are currently on there as well give you pretty limited ability to be able to develop, and we think that we've done a very good job of trying to utilizing this project and this parcel as best we could. Next slide. Do we have any questions?
If the presentation is over, we'll go ahead and do a round of comments from the Plan Commission, and just make sure we don't step on each other. I'll go ahead and do it the way we have been doing it through our previously almost exclusively virtual meetings, and I'll just kind of go through the order, and then we'll come back around again. So Kristen Berkman, do you have thoughts to share this evening? We'll start to go alphabetically, the first one here.
Great, thank you. I think you had initially proposed around 152 homes. Is that still the number? That's what I was reading in the PUD.
Yes, ma'am.
So there hasn't been any kind of decrease in density, correct?
No, we were able to take the 2 lots that we took out and move those to 2 other locations that we currently had within the development, but we opened up a little bit of space in there as well.
Okay. I had a concern with density at the initial meeting in November, so I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Randy Graham.
No questions or comments this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Johns.
This is, as Paul said, this is an infill development. I think you've done a very nice job of working with us to try to slow down the speed in the streets, incorporate the breakout bumps there to slow traffic where that through street is. I guess in the big picture, I think it's probably one of the best projects that we could hope for. It does fall between relatively high-density single-family homes, multi-use homes. It bridges the gap with your commercial. So I think you've done a good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Kelleher?
I agree with a lot of the comments. I think the product is nice. I am disappointed in the density, and not for density's sake, because I think with the fewer homes, you could make more connections to your green space. Right now, it appears your 14 acres of green space is mostly water or land behind homes that is not accessible to the rest of the residents. So those are still my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Andre Maui?
No questions or comments. Thanks.
Victor?
For not wanting to take up too much time, I'll just say that I too am disappointed in the density of still keeping it at 152. So I do appreciate your work, as Mr. John said, with the Pocket Park and some other things that have been changed. And I live on a curve, and people still speed. So we can do as much as we can to try to limit people in terms of thoroughfare and try to slow them down, but people will still find a way. So I do appreciate all your work on it. It's just that one negative thing of not or wanting lower density. So thank you.
Dave Schmitz?
Thank you. Yeah, this is a tricky infill project. I think I think the changes that have been made have been very helpful. It's definitely more favorable now, so I appreciate the effort by the petitioner, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Cindy Spoljarek?
Yeah, I share everyone else's concerns as well. This petitioner has been willing to work with us on a host of things, and unfortunately not able to get the unit count really down on this. If I could ask for one point of clarification, in the concept plan, it shows the restricted intersections, but then when we go to the language in the ordinance, it basically just talks about the 31-foot pavement, is the standard through the whole way. Is Public Works going to clarify that, or do we have a problem if there's a difference between, what's on the concept and what's in that language?
Can I speak to that? So, Ms. Spiljarek, there is one section in there where we did add language that stated that we would work with the city engineers to supply those bump outs along the Ogalla Drive extension per the recommendation of the engineer as far as design, and work with them to make sure that it's designed accordingly to the city of Westfield standards. So if there's a change in language that we would like to have into that PUD before the before the town council meeting, we'll be happy to make that the change in language.
And Cindy, this is John Nail. I just would reiterate that the bump outs are certainly on our radar for plan review, and we've made note so that when construction documents come through, we'll make sure that those are in there.
Okay, great. Thank you. Just one other thing, and it is something I've been bringing up with every project in this area, and most have been accommodating, at least at some level, to restrict short-term rentals. Realizing that the HOA could later on change that if that be the will of the neighborhood. But given its location at Grand Park, we are approving a single-family home subdivision. My concern is that we will start seeing more just straight short-term rental communities. I've had multiple people contact me already wanting to purchase new construction for the sole purpose of short-term rental. So it's something that, again, is concerning to me, and I'd really like to see language in your covenants to restrict those short-term rentals, realizing that that could change if the majority of those homeowners were willing to do so. Just a comment.
Sure, we have no objection to adding language into the DCCRs that would restrict that requirement.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just chime in on that. I'll second that just because of me living in this area. I know it is a problem with other neighborhoods that we're having rentals, and we see the value of property go down because of that. So
Sure, not a problem.
Thanks to all. It is a very unusual site. As we've grown over the years, we've left various pieces of property that become quite unique and challenging, and this was one that I was wondering how it could possibly turn out. I'm pleased that it's turned out the way it has, that you've worked with the adjacent property owners and reached agreement. I'm not insensitive to the density concern, but I understand why it's there, and I'm supportive of giving a good recommendation here. If there are no other concerns to be raised by plan commissioners, the action is to forward a recommendation to City Council. So we're ready for a motion if somebody would care to do so. And that would presumably need to include sidewalk language for the adjacent development, correct?
Yeah, if that's not already included.
It is not in the current language. Yeah,
Okay,
we just found out about that one today.
Yep, then we'll want to make sure that
Right,
that's
so that needs to be
part of the
incorporated
motion.
within it. But the rental is more of a sidebar thing in their
DCCRs.
covenants, not so much.
That's, yeah, I was just gonna make sure that was clear.
Right.
That's not
So we're
gonna
talking
be a
about two different
PUD
things
item.
that need to
Yep.
happen here.
And we can look to provide language to City Council at that time so they can have that opportunity and staff for them to be able to review that as well.
Okay, perfect. So do we have someone interested in offering a motion to send, and inclusive of the added commitment to include the connection to the sidewalk and the adjacent development?
I'll make a motion to send 2012 PUD 15 to the City Council with positive recommendation with the added condition that the sidewalk be added to serve the adjacent subdivision to the west.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. If there's no further comments, will staff please call the roll?
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Horkay?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher?
No.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
No.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Ms. Boljaric?
Yes.
Ms. Bergman?
No.
Motion carries.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next item of business is the Lancaster Phase 2 PUD, 2102-PUD-02. Kevin Todd will present to us.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President, members of the Planning Commission. Good evening. For the record, Kevin Todd with the Community Development Department. Item before you this evening is a project known as the Lancaster Phase 2 Plan Unit Development. This is approximately 36 acres at the northeast corner of 186th Street and Casey Road, requesting a change in zoning from AGSF 1 to the Lancaster Phase 2 PUD district. Project consists of up to 90 duplex dwellings. And this item received a public hearing at your February 1st meeting. There's been a handful of modifications that have happened or occurred to the PUD proposal since that time. The petitioner is here this evening and would like to walk through those changes with you. So with that, I'll pass it over to Mr. John Dobashewitz. Following his comments, this item is ready to receive a recommendation this evening. Thanks.
Thank you. John?
Thank you, Kevin. Good evening. For the record, my name is John Dobashewitz. I'm a land use professional with the law firm Nelson & Frankenberger. We represent the petitioner William Trace Development. With us this evening virtually is Jesse Pullman and William Trace, as well as Jim Shinover, an attorney with our office. As noted, the matter before you this evening is the Lancaster Phase 2 PUD. This evening, we are seeking a recommendation on the zoning request from the Plan Commission to the City Council. The subject real estate is shown here and consists of approximately 36.2 acres and is located at the northeast corner of 186th and Casey Road. The public hearing for this item was held on February 1st, and at that time, comments were provided by the adjoining property owner, principally regarding the proposed buffer along their shared property line with the subject real estate. And Plan Commission members to your left, the Guy Marcusfeld, his mom lives here, and Guy and representatives from our team have been coordinating in discussion and have a plan for the buffer that's mutually agreed upon. In response to comments from staff, the Plan Commission, and public, the applicant has made significant project modifications and enhancements, including but not limited to the following. Regarding home design and architecture, enhancements have been made in addition to site plan considerations. The concept plan, which must be complied with per the ordinance, minimizes visibility of homes from the perimeter streets. Design considerations include requirements that the proposed homes are, 1, single story in height with lower profile than a traditional two-story home, which reduces the visibility of the facades. There's over 200 feet of separation between Casey Road and the homes. Here's Casey Road along our west perimeter. There's an excess of 200 feet there. And intervening ponds and common area include perimeter landscaping along these perimeter streets. In addition, the ordinance has been revised to require enhancements to facades oriented toward these streets. You can see on the site plan on display those identified with a black dot. Those enhancements would include a minimum 24-inch masonry on all facades, so 360-degree architecture, including multiple materials on all sides. At least one of the dwellings on those structures would either have a gable or 2 dormers, with limitations on the redundancy or duplication of those types of elements. So there wouldn't be any flat roof facades along those perimeter streets as one would drive down 186th or Casey Road. And there's also a requirement for those gable ends to include a change in materials or material patterns, so you wouldn't have just a flat facade with only horizontal siding. You would have either shake siding or some other type of material in that gable end that would face the perimeter street. To further support the quality of the neighborhood and low-maintenance design, which is included as a requirement in the ordinance, all homes within the development would have masonry on all four sides. So there's a minimum standard for masonry wainscot for all homes, not just those homes along the perimeter street, which would enhance the variety as evidenced in the anti-monotony provisions within Exhibit D of the ordinance. So those are two items that were given significant consideration, masonry on all four sides, as well as enhancements to the gabled ends and roof planes that face the perimeter streets and enhanced anti-monotony provisions. Regarding density, the number of homes shown on the concept plan, 90, has been added to the ordinance, which wasn't included in the ordinance previously. 90 homes is less than contemplated in 2011 under the Spring Mill Trails PUD. The proposed density is just under 2.5 homes per acre. It's 2.48 and change. Per what was approved for the real estate in 2011, which would allow for as many as 2.8 homes per acre. If you could advance to that next page, please. There we go. Regarding open space, large natural areas as shown on the concept plan, including trails, are required for the PUD for passive recreation opportunities. Open space is also positioned along the perimeter of the site, in particular along Casey Road and 186th Street, with landscaping and ponds as a transition into the property. We've taken the concept plan and illustrated the area the size of a football field to assist in providing a visual scale to the overall open space. So you can see that yellow outlined area is roughly the size of a football field. You can see those are large, meaningful open space areas that would allow for passive recreation. We've confirmed with staff that the proposed open space provisions have no negative impacts on the existing Spring Mill Trails PUD and that the standards regarding the structure that's being used in this ordinance is consistent with the UDO. As a reminder, active amenities are provided within the Lancaster amenities, which were designed and scaled to serve development on this real estate as well as the area to the east. In this regard, only homes that are in the areas north of 186th Street would participate in that amenity facility. Homes north of 186th Street, which include this development, Lancaster, and Emery Trace, would not participate in those amenities that are south of 186th, which are part of the Spring Mill Trails. That was a question that came up, I believe, at your last hearing on February 1st from one of the homeowners to the south. We wanted to be clear that those were separate. If you can advance to the next page, please. Regarding the buffer yard next to the Marcusfeld parcel, the ordinance has been revised to incorporate buffering that was determined in coordination with the adjacent property owner. There's a 15-foot wide landscape easement. It's provided to ensure that the existing mature trees along the shared property line can be preserved. In addition to the preserved landscaping along the west property line of the Marcusfeld parcel, the west property line will be abutted by a common area depicted here on the concept plan. So you have the pond, which is required pursuant to compliance with the concept plan for development, as well as along the north and west property line, there would be an 8-foot tall shadow box privacy fence. The fence will be a minimum of 5 feet from the shared property line. In addition, the ordinance requires a minimum of 42 evergreen trees to be planted on lots as shown on this exhibit. Those evergreen trees would be at the rear of these lots and the shared lots here. Finally, additional clarification was added to the ordinance today to specify that the evergreens would be 8-foot Norway spruce. I hope that variety is acceptable to the Plan Commission and the urban forester. The fence will include a gate for maintenance, and the adjoining owner will be permitted to connect the fence to the required fence. There were a few correspondence that went back and forth between our team, Kevin Todd, as well as Mr. Marcusfeld, and the amendments that you see before you this evening that we're asking for your consideration are reflective of those discussions. In conclusion, if you could go back to the first slide, please. In conclusion, we appreciate the constructive comments that we've received and have incorporated those to the proposed ordinance where appropriate. We've worked with staff as of late of this afternoon, as I indicated, to conform to their comments and address and review the addition of the buffer as I described this evening. Tonight, we would respectfully request the Plan Commission forward the Lancaster 2 proposal to the City Council with a fair recommendation. With that, I conclude, and we'd be glad to address any questions the Commission has prior to its motion to the Council. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go through Commissioner comments, this time starting with Randy Graham.
No questions or comments this time?
Mike Johns.
The only really question I have regards to renting and leasing of these properties. It is a concern of me, particularly because we're looking at duplex homeless type arrangements. So if to have one unit rented and it's a short-term rental with having the associated unit being owned by a separate homeowner, I could see where that could lead to some huge issues in the future. So I really would kind of like the developer to take a look at considering some type of language in the covenants and restrictions to limit short-term rentals on those properties.
We can look at, and by short-term rental, do you mean like a Airbnb, something along those lines?
Yes.
Okay, we'll take a look at that and coordinate with staff. And again, if the comment's similar to the last petition, that's something you want us to look at from a CCR standpoint and not necessarily incorporate it into the ordinance.
Yes.
Thank you.
Please, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Kelleher?
I think it's a great project. I appreciate the additions of so many things, including working with the Marcus Feld. I think they've all been positive. Thank you.
Thank you. Andre Maui?
No questions or comments.
Victor McCarty?
Well, just because I do every time, I'll say that this one's driven me crazy a little bit just because I drive by here literally every day to and from work and so on and so forth. And, I just have to really think, does this add value to the area? And I think, push comes to shove, it does. All I hear from people, my neighbors and other people who live in the area is, how can I get from my home safely to Grand Park? And I think this does complete what was already established going through the rest of what Lancaster was approved before. I've mentioned before how dangerous Casey Road can be and so on and so forth. So with adding a path and being able to allow people to go from the corner here to Grand Park, I do think it adds to the area. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Schmidt?
No questions or comments, thanks.
Cindy Spoljarek?
Excuse me. I just wanted to follow up with what Mike said. I had the similar concern, and I let John know that, concerning the short-term rental piece. In the Lancaster one, there's actually, I think, a very similar, if not the same product, and there is language in the Lancaster one restricting those short-term rentals. So I was looking for the consistency there too, given that they're, Lancaster 1 and 2, and knowing that you provided that short-term rental restriction in Lancaster 1. I'd like to see turns with you too.
I had a little trouble understanding her. Did you catch all of what she...
We did.
Okay.
Within Lancaster, there were 300 dwellings that were both townhomes and two-family dwellings, and there was a commitment made about rental in that community because of the size and the scope of the homes that were proposed. Our client, the petitioner, has taken that into consideration and don't feel that would be appropriate at this location because of the efforts made in the low maintenance option. So all the outsides of all the dwellings, as you drive by, you wouldn't see the difference between whether someone owns or rents there. Not that that necessarily is a concern long-term, but we've looked at it and we feel this is 90 homes. The 300 at the adjacent property, I think, was the rationale there was because it was such a large community.
No, my concern is the short-term rentals. The longer-term rentals are kind of more stable in a lot of ways. It's the short-term.
So it's the Airbnb type of thing. Well, let's take a look at that because we haven't looked at that yet, and in advance of coming to council, we'll have a better response for you, or not better, but just a response because we haven't looked at it.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I was trying to make sure we didn't leave a stone unturned there. Kristen Berkman?
John, I just want to say thank you to you and your team. I know that this neighbor had a safety concern, and I think that putting up the fence is really a respectful thing to do for her. So I just want to say thank you for all you've done to work with those neighbors.
We'll commit that to our client. Thank you.
I would echo those sentiments as well. particularly a nice decorative fence. So this is in front of us for a recommendation to council. There is nothing that needs to be added from the dialogue to a motion. Do we have someone who would like to offer a motion on Lancaster Phase 2 PUD?
This is Kelleher. I will make a motion to send a positive recommendation to the City Council for 2102-PUD-02.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Second. Dave Schmitz. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to send a favorable recommendation to council. If there's no further questions or comments, will staff please call the roll?
Mr. Horkay?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes?
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Ms. Boljaric?
Yes.
Ms. Berkman?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. My Paul Harvey, now page 2. Plan Commission Order 2102 is next on our agenda. This was a late addition. I believe Todd Bertrand is online, from what I have been told, to provide us the context of what it is that we're needing to understand here so that we can make a recommendation or ask questions or whatever else it is that we might have to do.
Thank you, Mr. President and Commissioners, Secretary, Dr. Bertrand, Chief of Staff for the City of Westfield. The item you have before you tonight is relative to
Todd?
an economic development. Yes.
We're having some difficulty hearing you.
Does that help?
That might have been a little better. Can you start again, please, and we'll let you know.
How's the audio quality now?
That's more superior than either of the first two attempts. Thank you.
Okay, I'll do my best here. For the record, Todd Bertrand, Chief of Staff for City of Westfield. The item you have before you tonight is an economic development instrument that has to follow a statutory course for approval. So what you have before you is relative to a sub-allocation area that we are pursuing with Old Town development for our downtown and a potential public-private partnership with Old Town for the creation or construction of a public parking garage as it relates to and integrated with their Union Square project. This instrument you have before you has been considered at the Redevelopment Commission and approved. And it's really just a perfunctory exercise that takes 4 parcels. And I think Kevin is scrolling for exhibit. So 4 parcels from the Grand Junction TIF. That's a great example right there, Kevin. Thank you. In the lower portion of your screen, that red outlined area, those 4 parcels exist today in the Grand Junction Economic Development Area or Grand Junction TIF. This instrument and this process takes those 4 particular parcels and places them in a sub-allocation area for purposes of capturing new tax increment, so the RDC can then capture that and then oblige that to any debt service that may come about. You're not committing any other governing body to a financial arrangement at this point in time. This is just simply an exercise that the statute prescribes that follows the Redevelopment Commission to the Plan Commission and then other processes before the other governing bodies. So it does not adjust any land use that is already prescribed here or may be pursued. It's simply for purposes of allocating these parcels into a sub-allocation area for purposes of economic development. And with that, I'll yield on the microphone.
Yeah, so this is Kevin. So just to further, we've seen these before, right? These Plan Commission orders that come to the Plan Commission from the Redevelopment Commission. And really, the Plan Commission's role here is just to affirm or acknowledge that the project is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. That's essentially what we're doing here tonight.
Okay, and I understand that, and I agree, we have seen a lot of these over the years that some of us have been doing what we're doing here. Somehow or other, this one, when I read it over the weekend, didn't seem like it was quite the same set of circumstances, but Todd's explanation has been helpful. I'm not sure if anybody is left still with any questions, but I think just to make certain that we're all having the opportunity to voice any concerns or ask questions, I'll do a round of calling on commissioners here to see if they have any concerns that they want to air right now for Todd, Kevin, or our newly present legal counsel. Start this time with Mike Johns.
No questions, no comments.
Dr. Kelleher.
Well, I'm confused. We've done these before, and they're usually something that says, does what they're going to be doing meet the comprehensive plan? Which is what this one is asking, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And I'm not sure what they're doing. I'm not a finance person, and the APC doesn't concern itself with those kind of things. So forgive me, Mr. Bertrand, but you know, we're doing this and this and this. Exactly what are you doing that is to fit the comprehensive plan or not? Can you make it real simple?
I wish I could.
Maybe Kevin can say it does.
Yeah, that's a better question for Kevin, because this particular instrument does not address any sort of comp plan, architectural standards, land use. It's merely taking 4 parcels that are identified and then creating a sub-allocation area around them.
But so we're being asked, does it fit the comprehensive plan? And since I really don't understand a lot of this, I guess I'm going to ask Kevin or staff.
Yeah, so later on your agenda, you're going to see a PUD proposal that is essentially amending the Grand Union Square PUD. And so this acreage that's on the southern part of your screen, or the bottom part of your screen here, is being added to that project. So we're going to go through that exercise here with that proposal, but the long and the short of it is, I mean, we do believe that it is consistent with the comp plan. This is part of our downtown, calls for some mixture of uses, some multifamily, attached dwellings, and then the associated parking that goes with it.
Okay, so there's nothing in here that does not fit what the comp plan calls for downtown.
I would concur with that.
Okay, thank you.
Andre Maui.
No questions.
Victor.
No questions or comments, thank you.
Dave Schmitz.
No questions, thanks.
Cindy Spoljarek.
None, thank you.
Kristen Berkman.
So Kevin, are you just extending the line south on the Grand Junction PUD a little bit? Is that what you just said? I just wanted to clarify it. Or south, east? Pam just went. So
Yeah.
is it the whole red outline?
It is.
Is
Yep.
not currently in the Grand Junction PUD? It is.
Well, that's the proposal later on the agenda, is to add this acreage east of Union Street to the current PUD that is west of Union Street. Does that make sense? They're not,
From one
Yeah,
PUD to the other?
To Union Square.
yeah, it's expanding the Union Square PUD.
It's expanding it a little bit
It's
to
not
some land that wasn't already in it.
That's correct.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So
Okay,
that's-
thank you, sorry,
That's the
thank
comp
you.
plan question essentially that we're looking at
Okay,
for this Plan Commission order, is this consistent with the comp plan? We believe it is.
Okay, thank you.
Randy Graham.
No questions or comments? Thank you.
Okay. And I think I'm much more clear on what we're doing. And maybe it's just been too long since I've seen one of these to be as fluent as I'd like to think I am. Just one question. Doesn't matter which way the cart and the horse are arranged here, does it? The fact that we have something coming later doesn't need to be there first. We actually maybe should do this first to make certain that there's a reason for somebody to be bringing this other item to us. So, okay.
Yep, there's no prescribed order.
All right, got it. All right, so this item is in front of us for approval. Do we have anybody that's comfortable enough with all of this to make a motion?
I make a motion that we approve Plan Commission Order 21-01.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Staff, please call the roll.
Mr. Johns?
Yes?
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes,
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Ms. Spiljerik?
Yes.
Ms. Bergman?
Yes,
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Horkay?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Those are the items of business. We are now moving on to public hearings. Item first is Bellcrest, 2103-ODP-05 and 2103-SPP-05 northwest corner of 186th Street and Shady Nook. Is Nate on the call to do the presentation?
I am, Bob. Thanks. Good evening, Plan Commission. For the record, Dane Crabtree with the Community Development Department. The items before you this evening are the primary plat and overall development plan for Bellcrest, an 84-unit attached villa development at the northwest corner of 186th Street and Shady Nook Road. The Bellcrest PUD, which permits the proposed development, was approved at the December 14th, 2020 City Council meeting. These items are scheduled for a public hearing this evening. They have been properly noticed and advertised, and the department has received no comments. As there are still some outstanding items necessary, there is no request for approval this evening. Matt Skelton of Church Hiddle Antrim is present virtually this evening for questions, as he does not plan to make a presentation, but is available again if there are questions, and I am available if there are questions of staff. Thank you.
Thank you. This item is in front of us for a public hearing. So we will go ahead and open a public hearing at 7:58 on the Bellcrest item. Do we have anybody in the room that has submitted a card for this item?
We have not received any cards for this item.
We have not. Is there anybody that is attending the meeting virtually that has an interest in providing public comments on this? If so, type quickly or at least shoot us a note saying, I'm typing fast and furiously, I'll get back to you. While that happens, we will wait for a couple of minutes to give them an opportunity. I hope that wasn't anything dangerous. There's somebody in the attic? Or is that from the basement? I assume, Ms. Howard, we have not had any emails arrive? All right. I'm going to go ahead and
No.
close the public hearing at 8:01 and go through commissioner comments. We'll start this time with Mike Johns.
No questions, no comments.
Dr. Kelleher?
I reviewed the staff report, and there are a lot of outstanding items that will be resolved before it comes back to us. One in particular was the connection between Street D and the open space between two of those lots, and I know that was a commitment, so I'm hoping to see that in the final layout. That's it.
Thank you. Andre Maui?
No questions or comments.
Victor McCarty?
No questions or comments?
Just kidding. Dave Schmitz?
No questions, no comments.
Cindy Spoljarek?
None, thanks.
Kristen Berkman?
None, thank you.
Randy Graham?
No questions, no comments.
Jorge has none as well. So, moving on.
Thank you, folks.
Certainly. Item next is Chatham Village's multifamily project, 2103-ODP-01 and 2103-SPP-01. Pam Howard will be presenting.
Yes, thank you again, Mr. President. Pam Howard with the Community Development Department. Before you this evening for a public hearing, we have primary plat and overall development plan for 2 lots and 1 block on approximately 40 acres in the Chatham Hills PUD. This site is located on the south side of 196th Street, east of Tomlinson Road, and was incorporated into the Chatham Hills PUD with a 2019 amendment. This item was properly noticed and advertised for a public hearing this evening, and as of now, we have received no public comments. Some items are still outstanding for this item, and compliance will be confirmed prior to this item appearing on a subsequent agenda for final consideration. I do have petitioner here who does plan to make a presentation, after which both he and I will be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so yes, this would be a 13-acre development. Approximately 2 or 3 acres of those would be dedicated back as right-of-way as part of adjustments to 196th and Chattahiddle Road, which will be bisecting our site. If you want to go to the next slide. This is the basic site plan. Again, we are just going through primary plat and overall development plan, so we're continuing to develop these plans ourselves and are not quite to the stage of elevations and rendering such, so you'll see those later. But this is essentially our attempt at screening the parking. We'll have plenty of landscaping. You can see Chattahiddle going north-south through that site and connecting to 196th that runs across the top border. And then you also have the Buckeye gas pipeline there on the southeast is kind of that easement shown. Just it's the reason for the corner there. These buildings will be 3 stories tall. There'll be approximately 166 units, I believe, in the left-west building, and the remainder of the 250 total in that east building. There'll be a courtyard, as you can see, with a pool deck, dog park, lawn, in addition to the green space to the southeast that we'll be using as additional green space, and as well as plenty of amenity space. We can go to the next slide for a little bit of highlight of that. This is kind of the luxury quality that you would expect in a growing community in the central Indiana area. So this would be stainless steel and your granite countertops, 9-foot ceilings. We've built this product at least a dozen times in the Indianapolis area, and we're very confident in the adjustments that we've made since COVID. For example, you'll see that we have 54% 2 bedrooms. That's an intentional adjustment to allow a little bit more work from home space, as well as the 1 bedrooms have been modified to allow for a little bit more desk space rather than somebody who's typically going to work every day. These are 100% market rate. They'll have amenities available that are kind of our typical premium package of a large pool deck, dog park, fitness studio, co-working space again, as well as covered parking and personal storage available. You can go to. Then briefly, we expect to start construction as soon as we can this summer. It'll take approximately 21 months for the first units to be delivered, a full 2 years to really complete the full project. And then approximately a 1.5 years later, we'll be full, which should coincide with the simultaneous development of the rest of kind of the Chatham Hills, Chatham Village expansion. And I believe that should be it. If you can go to the next slide. Yeah, I just wanted to give a really brief overview tonight. Again, it's just primary plat, but I didn't want you guys to see 40 acres and multifamily and have no idea what was going on. So I'm available for questions.
Thank you. We will move on to the public hearing.
Great.
Then go through Commissioner comments as well, once we give everyone the opportunity. So it is 8:08, and I will open the public hearing on Chatham Village's multifamily project. Do we have any cards?
We do not have any cards for this project.
Okay, and no emails as of right now?
Correct.
Okay. As we did previously, we'll allow folks attending virtually who may have an interest in speaking to this project an opportunity to get a message to us. And if you can't type fast enough, at least send us a message that says you're sending a message so we know to wait for it. Have you been staring intently at your email inbox?
We still have no comments on this project.
All right. Having not received anything, I will close the public hearing at 8:10, and we will go through Plan Commissioner comments, this time starting with Dr. Kelleher.
I think it looks like a great project. I appreciate all the thought that's gone into it and the fact that you're experienced in this area. I look forward to seeing it. I have one side question, and that is mainly for staff, I guess. Is the drainage for this project involved in the larger project? Because I don't.
That would be a question for the petitioner. Our city engineer may know the answer as well, as they review the construction
Okay.
plans.
Okay, that was it.
The petitioner's on his way up to answer that.
Okay.
Yes, it is. So we'll be draining to the northeast. I believe approximately 1,000 feet to the northeast. There's one of the recreational ponds as part of the Chatham Village development that I neglected to put the master plan map of. But yes, so it would be visible on this map just to the northeast.
Thank you.
Moving on, Andre Maui.
I do not have any questions.
Excellent. Victor McCarty.
I just look forward to seeing the elevations to visualize what it can be.
Thank you. Dave Schmitz.
No questions, thanks.
Cindy Spoljarek.
One quick question, it might be for staff. I see that with parking, it says one space per one bedroom, two for two bedroom. Don't we usually require 1.5 or 2 per unit regardless?
We're having some difficulty with your audio, Cindy.
It's not, I'll ask in another time if you can't hear me.
I'm
Yeah.
not trying to turn you off. I just,
Yeah, Cindy, I did get that you were asking about the parking ratio and parking numbers, and that's something that will be, that's reviewed during the TAC process, and that's really more reviewed during the detailed development plan. At this stage, they can show parking, but they're not necessarily tied to the numbers that are shown on this plan. Once the detailed development plan does come in, we will review the actual parking numbers, and if it's not compliant, they'll need to address it.
Okay, I was just wondering what our standard was because I didn't know. But.
Yeah, our typical UDO standard is 2 spaces per unit, doesn't go by bedrooms. I'm not sure off the top of my head if this PUD changed that for this parcel.
Okay, thank you.
does petitioner have an answer? looks
Yes,
like?
I'll speak to that briefly. Yes, so for this PUD, it is 1 space per 1 bedroom and 2 spaces per 2 and 3 bedroom. And so that is the minimum. We do plan on exceeding that, but it is a little bit different from the UDO.
Are you saying that is what's actually specified in the Chatham Hills overall
Correct.
ordinance?
Yes.
That it envisioned this kind of a component as part of the development and stated that as the
Indeed.
parking requirement?
Yes.
All right,
Thank you.
cool. Anything else, Cindy?
No, thanks.
Okay, Kristen Berkman.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Randy Graham.
No questions or comments, thank you.
Mike Johns.
I, like Victor, I'm looking forward to seeing the elevations also, but look forward to it. That's it.
I echo that as well. So if there's no further comments, look forward to having you back. We will now move on to Caramore, northwest corner of 196th Street and Horton Road, 2103 ODP 03 and 2103 SPP 03. Presented also by Pam Howard.
Yes, thank you again, Mr. President, members of the commission. Pam Howard with the Community Development Department. Before you this evening for a public hearing, we have primary plat and overall development plan for 83 single-family residential lots on approximately 40 acres in the Caramore PUD district. This site is located at the northwest corner of 199th Street and Horton Road and was zoned the Caramore PUD in December of 2020. This item has been properly noticed and advertised for a public hearing this evening, and no comments on this item have been received at this time. Some items on this, again, are still outstanding, and compliance will be confirmed prior to this item appearing on a subsequent agenda for final consideration. Do have the petitioners available virtually. They do not plan to present, but are available for questions, as am I, if you have any questions of the department. Thank you.
Thank you. Since this is before us for a public hearing, we will open a public hearing at 8:15 on Caramore. Do we have any cards?
We have no cards on this item and no emails at this time.
Okay. Once again, those listening, if you're inclined to want to contribute, please do so timely. If anybody in the room has any thoughts that have come to mind, feel free, even if you haven't submitted a card already, to rush right up here and do so. And we'll allow this to go for a couple of minutes while we give the typists an opportunity if they're so inclined. Still crickets?
Correct, still no comments on this one.
All right. Close the public hearing at 8:16. And we will go through commissioner comments, starting with Andre Maui.
No questions or comments, thanks.
Victor McCarty.
No questions or comments, thank you.
Dave Schmitz.
No questions, thank you.
Cindy Spiljarek. We're on a roll.
No, thanks.
Excuse me?
None. No,
Thanks.
I'm good, thanks.
Thank you. Kristen Berkman.
None, thank you.
Randy Graham.
No questions, comments?
Mike Johns.
No questions, thank you.
Dr. Kelleher.
Well, I'm going to break your record. I just want to give praise to this developer. I think it's a great design, a lot of open space, openings between homes to get back to the open space, and their architectural requirements are wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you. And I kind of echo that. I thought the site plan on this was very unique and interesting, and hopefully it'll work well for them, and we'll see more creativity like this. So we'll move on from Caramore, in the absence of any further comments, to Community Bible Fellowship Church, northeast corner of 161st Street and Oak Road, number 2103-ODP04 and 2103-SPP04. Pam Howard, you're on again.
Yes, thank you again. Pam Howard with the Community Development Department. Before you this evening for a public hearing, we have a primary plat and overall development plan for 2 lots on approximately 34.5 acres in the SF2 district. This site is located at the northeast corner of 161st Street and Oak Road. This item was properly noticed and advertised for a public hearing, and at this time we have received 4 comments that have been uploaded to the agenda. Please note that the most recent comment was received a little bit before 6:30 and was uploaded during the meeting, so that should be on the agenda now if you refresh it. Some items are still outstanding on this one as well, and compliance will be confirmed prior to this item appearing on a subsequent agenda for final consideration. I do have the representative, Andy Wirt, Church Hill and Antrim, here to present, and afterwards, both he and I will be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Andy Wirt, land use professional with law firm at Church Hill and Antrim, with offices at 116 North Union Street here in Westfield. With me this evening are Mark Alt and Paul Clare, who are members of the Community Bible Fellowship Church Building Committee. Pam's given a good overview of our plans to date. Obviously, we're pretty early in the process, but we believe we found a site that meets our needs. I also think that in general, the church is a good land use for this site, given the multiple pipelines that run through the property. Our church is young, but it has been active despite the challenges of COVID. They are currently worshiping in leased facilities in the Carmel Events Center. Sunday attendance has been around 350 people, with others joining online. But it's time to look for a permanent home, and we think we found a site that absolutely meets our needs. We did hold a virtual meeting with the area residents last month. It was a good opportunity for members of the building committee to get to know our future neighbors and learn of their concerns. I would say, in general, they are supportive of the land use, but they do have some concerns about how the details of the development of our site will affect the enjoyment of their property. Drainage and landscaping were big topics. Fortunately, being early in the process, we know what areas to concentrate on as we prepare our detailed development plan for city approval. But honestly, we're probably a year and a half away from that, from even beginning the design of the building itself. The footprint of the development plan is very conceptual, but at the same time, as you can see on the site plan here, we've got 3, or actually 4 pipelines that run through the property. Frankly, I don't see significant changes being made of where we put the church and the parking. Currently 5 parcels under single ownership. We are proposing with our primary plat 2 blocks, Block A and Block B, with the bulk of the proposed church improvements to be located on Block A. The natural slope of the land is the southeast. Consequently, we've got showing a pond that will serve as stormwater detention. The outlet to that pond will be to the Oak Park regulated drain. We are aware of the city's future plans for improvement of 161st and Oak Road, that intersection. With that road improvement, of course, comes drainage improvements as well. And we have committed to working with the city engineer to coordinate our construction with the public improvements. Sanitary sewer access will be coming out of Hawthorne Ridge subdivision to the east. Water will be extended from the current location on East 161st Street. Primary access, as you can see, is off of 161st, which is closest to the what will be the entrance to the church, with our secondary entrance being off of Oak Road. That really pretty much wraps up my introductory comments. Happy to address any questions you might have.
Thank you. We'll go to the public hearing, and then we'll invite you back up to address what is brought to us.
Thank you.
I will open a public hearing for this item, the Community Bible Fellowship Church, at 8:23 p.m. We have a volunteer to start the public comments. Do we have any other cards, Pam?
We do not.
No.
Up here now.
Okay, and we do have 4 email communications that have been uploaded and are accessible through the agenda online. Floor is yours.
I'm John Boyer. I'm the president of WT&T. Turn on the button. Oh. I live on Oakwood Lane, which is on the, probably near the entrance on Oak Road, directly across where the exit comes out. And one of the issues we'd like to bring up is that we not lose any land for Excel or decel lanes from our property on the west side of Oak Road. When there was originally planned another subdivision there, the city originally tried to take some land from us for Excel, decel. We've been in this neighborhood for 40 years, and we respect that we not lose any land for the west side of Oak Road for that. That's the main issue that my neighbors discussed with me tonight.
Thank you. Welcome.
My name is Randy Tatum. I'm here with my wife, Susie. We live at 16250 Oak Road, which is the northwest corner of the property where the church is proposed. We too have concerns about acceleration, deceleration lanes, along with lighting concerns, light pollution, traffic, any kind of vegetation that they may add around as a buffer. I know that that the building's in the conceptual stage, but we're concerned about the aesthetic value of the building. Drainage is an issue, and we're being reassured that that's being accommodated, but Soil control and water control during the project is always a concern. I've had a bad experience with that. It happened to be a church, coincidentally, that caused the problem, so I'll be acutely aware of how that proceeds. So I think it would be a bit of a reach to say that we're accepting of the project, because we're not necessarily accepting. And we would prefer soybeans and corn, but realistically, it'll get developed, and we understand that. If you count the number of parking spaces in that parking lot and consider how many cars are going to be coming and going from that property in concentration, that's a big concern. And we're also concerned about the future growth of the church. I know that they're limited in where they can put structure, but if they prosper, and everybody wants to prosper, what happens in the future? Down the road, is there additional building? Is there daily activity throughout the week on the property? I know this is a business enterprise, and one day a week is one thing, but there'll be other activities. So those are our concerns. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any emails other than what is already on the agenda for our perusal?
I do not see any additional emails. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody else in the audience that has a comment they'd like to bring forward? Okay. The writers have had a reasonable opportunity, so I'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this at 8:27. Would the petitioner's representative like to address what's been brought to our attention so far in the public hearing, please?
Yes, Mr. Boyer's concern regarding the passing blister on the west side of Oak Road, we did address that amongst ourselves, and we're open to the idea of putting all those auxiliary improvements to the east side. It's going to have to be something that is coordinated with the city engineer's office, obviously, but we're certainly open to that concept. Regarding Mr. Tatum's concerns, I wish I could address those specifically tonight, but we're really kind of premature on that. I think we've, regarding traffic, lighting, landscaping, those are all improvements that will come with the detailed plan, and we're certainly aware of their concerns on that, and hope to have those addressed at that time.
Okay, thank you. Is Jonathan Nail still on the call or attending virtually?
Yes, I'm here.
Is it too early to ask for any kind of input from you regarding what to do on Oak Road if all of the changes to the flow of the road and the ingress egress can be accommodated safely and reasonably all on the east side?
Yeah, the previous project that was proposed on this parcel did utilize a lane shift to the east, so that their turn lane and ACL decel could be accommodated without any additional right-of-way necessary on the west side of Oak Road. So I don't see any reason why this developer couldn't do the same thing.
Okay, and that was my recollection. I didn't go back and research it, but I thought we had taken care of that. So.
And then additionally, I will point out that the city is aware of drainage issues along 161st Street there on the southeast corner of this parcel. We do have an engineer, a consulting firm under contract, and they're working on a drainage design to help improve drainage in this area that will actually be installed prior to this project coming through. But we have coordinated fairly extensively with the developer to ensure that the culvert improvement and other improvements that we're doing as part of this drainage project correspond correctly with any kind of future design on this parcel. So we are actively working with the developer on that as well.
Very good, thank you. We'll start commissioner comments with Victor McCarty.
I guess really the only thing hasn't been covered so far is just in terms of lighting, and I know we're still a handful of years out with that, but just have the consideration of if there's lights out in the parking lot, just have them be on a timer, and that's about as much as you can do. So just please do take all concerns for neighbors into consideration. So, thank you.
Thank you. Dave Schmitz,
No questions, thank you.
Cindy Spiljarek,
There's a problem on the online agenda. I can't seem to pull up the public comments. I just wanted to make you guys aware of that.
staff will, yeah. Maybe if you refresh or open a new tab, something like that, but it's not critical probably for tonight unless you want to be certain to review those to be able to bring something else up, and we can come back and stop with you again, just to be sure if you have anything else that you have that opportunity. Do you have anything else?
All good.
Yeah, and Cindy, if you're trying to open it from the agenda, and just make sure you refresh the agenda first, because that was updated during the meeting. And if you're trying to open a previous version, it probably won't open for you.
Appreciate that,
So that
Pam.
may help.
Yeah, Pam, refreshing it didn't work for me. I actually had to close it and just start over again, and then it opened it. So.
Okay,
that
sorry
might be
about that.
something you have to do.
All right. Cindy, do you have anything else pending being able to see the latest email correspondence?
Actually, between what was in the staff report and the neighbor meeting summary, I think they covered everything. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Kristen Berkman.
Thank you, Bob. I just had a couple of questions. One, do you currently have a preschool at the church?
No, we do not at this
No.
time.
Okay. And I know that can change, but I was just interested if you currently had that, because that would be another traffic through the week, as the neighbors were talking about. The only other thing that I would bring up is that headlights pulling in and out of the parking lot. You have a lot of neighbors out there, so if there can be some thoughtfulness on where those particular entrances and exits are placed as to not flash headlights into their homes, I think that it's probably very doable.
We know the interest of the church is going to be on the south end, and so small evening groups would tend to be locating close to that south entrance. The thought being that the headlights are not going to be, they'll be facing towards the church rather than the neighborhoods. And then, of course, Sundays, that wouldn't be an issue.
Okay, thank you.
And from a staff perspective, I can say, I believe both those entrances do align with entrances on the opposite side of the street, both on the south and along Oak Road. And that's usually our city policy, is to have entrances align when possible with other existing roads and entrances.
Thanks, Neil.
Thank you. Randy Graham,
No questions, comments?
Mike Johns.
Well, I don't really have any questions. My only comment is that this is obviously going to be an extremely challenging site to develop with 3 pipelines going through it. So
Most definitely.
I'm really looking forward to seeing the designs that you bring forward. So thank you.
Dr. Kelleher.
Only one, and that is I don't see any buffer along the residences on the southwest corner. And I'm assuming that would be required, Pam? They are AGSF1, or SF2, I'm sorry, aren't they?
If they're SF2, then that would be an institutional use to an SF2 use, and it would be required, whatever the UDO says is the minimum buffer requirement for that,
Sure.
given that it's
Okay.
proposed institutionally. Though currently, we are reviewing it as a primary plat, so not necessarily looking at the use. So if we're just looking at the zoning, it's SF2 up against SF2, which wouldn't require a buffer. But if it's not shown now and it gets approved without it, once the church comes in as an institutional use, it would be required to be added at that time during the detailed development plan phase.
Okay, thanks. I wanted to say that as much to give heads up to the church as anything else. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you're clear on that, right?
Yes.
Okay. Andre Maui.
No questions, thanks.
Okay. None from the chair as well. So I look forward to seeing you back.
Thank you.
Lots of luck. Page 3. Orchard View PUD Amendment 1, 2103 PUD-06. This will be presented by Kevin Todd. It's here for a public hearing, but if everything comes out fine with the petition, there's no public comments that create any reason to have to do anything further, there is a recommendation that we could go ahead and forward to City Council tonight.
Yeah, that's correct. And thank you for the record, Kevin Todd with the Community Development Department. Item before you this evening is really just adding the 3 acres highlighted on the screen here to the Orchard View PUD project. So just give you a little bit different context here. Oh, come on. If you can see my mouse kind of circling, that yellow box is in the way, but right in this area here where that cul-de-sac is showing, that's the new 3 acres that we're talking about. And essentially it would add about 8 lots to this project. As proposed, it would follow all of the Area A standards of Orchard View, as you see on the screen here. And really no other changes to the design standards. It is noted in the PUD ordinance that the UDO perimeter lot architecture standards would apply to any of these lots that do face the perimeter of the project along Spring Mill Road. That would be the case anyway. I think this was just a clarification statement because there are some other perimeter lot requirements within Orchard View. So just wanted to be sure that we're being clear about what applies here. With that, the petitioner is here this evening, I believe still here, yes, and would like to say a few words if there's anything left to say. Come on up, Paul. And while he's coming up, this is scheduled for a public hearing, and as you mentioned, Mr. President, if there's no public or Plan Commission concerns with moving this along this evening, that would be staff's recommendation.
Thank you. Floor is yours.
Good evening again. Paul Munoz with Arbor Homes, 9225 Harrison Park Court, Indianapolis, Indiana. Really, the only thing I wanted to add is some of you guys may be aware that this was originally part of a concern from both Plan Commission and Town Council or City Council at the time that this project originally came through. We were unable to work at that time with the landowner to purchase that property. As we were going through the construction plan and primary plat phase of the development, there was some additional right-of-way that we had to try to acquire, and in doing so, we would have had to have taken quite a bit of that property to do so, bringing it almost all the way up to the front door of the existing dwelling that is out there on that property. So in doing that, we decided that it would probably be best for everybody to just go ahead and work with them to try to acquire that, and we were able to come to an agreement. So this would provide for a consistent right-of-way all the way across the front of the property. It would get rid of a current private drive that is there that services a mechanic shop on the property. We provide for the trail to extend all the way across the front as well, and keep a consistent right-of-way and buffering from one side of the property to the other as part of that development. So be happy to answer any questions if you guys have any.
Okay, we'll open a public hearing first and see if there are any comments to be had that way. It's 8:39. I will open the public hearing on the Orchard View PUD Amendment 1. Assume no cards?
No cards and no emails at this time.
Okay. Is there anybody in the House that has not submitted a card that was here to comment on this? Looks like not the case. Anybody that is attending virtually, if you are wanting to have a comment submitted for this, please type quickly and let us know that you're out there and would like to comment. We'll give you a couple of minutes to do so. Still quiet on the email front.
Correct, still no comments.
When my clock clicks over to 8:41, we'll close the public hearing. It's 8:41. Public hearing is closed. Commissioner comments, starting with Dave Schmitz.
No questions, no comments, thank you.
Cindy Spoljarek.
Just one. I think I spoke to the commissioner about this. Those lots that are on Spring Hill Road with the rear elevation, they did put down the rear improvement standard that they had for a few other lots in the original. That is not the same as what our UDO requires in terms of that 7-point list that you choose from. And so I'm kind of confused because what you're stating would be lesser than that standard, I think. And I was hoping that we would have our normal UDO standard apply.
No, Cindy, this is Kevin. I think it does refer back to the UDO standard. We can look at it again, but I think that's how that is worded.
Okay, because on the concept plan anyway, it's got the little O next to it, and then in the little table, it defines what that is. And that doesn't say it's the UDO standard, it says something else.
Yeah, here's section 5. Standards of Article 6.3C1, which are the perimeter lot standards in the UDO, shall apply to the development of the applicable lots in the new real estate. So it's a little wordy, but that's these 3 acres that would apply to.
Okay, yeah, I think there's 4 lots, but it's just where it says architectural standards on their submittal here that I'm looking at. That's where there's just that discrepancy, I think, that needs to be updated.
This thing isn't catching. Huh? Go ahead, Paul.
Woo!
Yeah, I think she may be looking at the original one from what was applied. We had conversations with Mrs. Spoljarek regarding that, and she wanted us to be able to meet those standards of the UDO. We did work with Kevin to draft that language and agree to meet those. So the other should be removed, and the new standards that Kevin gave us should be the one that's most current.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
All right. Kristen Berkman,
Thank you, I don't have anything, thank you.
Randy Graham,
No questions, no comments.
Mike Johns,
No questions, no comments?
Dr. Kelleher,
Nothing, thank you.
Andre Maui,
No questions or comments.
Victor McCarty.
I'll try not to take too much time. So just to kind of explain my prior vote with the prior project is the only reason why I voted no was because of higher density. I think everything else was great and pocket park, et cetera. So with this project, I know it's already been approved back in 2019, but again, that is high density that just doesn't help out the area. And with adding the lots here, I know it's only 8, but it continues to add to that. And it just something doesn't sit right with me if how a homeowner that's lived here longer than I've been alive was displaced having to do with this project. So that's just, again, big concern with me is the density. So, thank you.
I have nothing further to add. The request is that we consider going ahead and forwarding a recommendation to City Council. Does somebody, would somebody be open to, do we have to move on this? Or is it more of a consensus thing? Refresh my memory.
Yeah, you would need a motion.
Okay, that's where I was headed. I just want to make sure I'm not wasting time.
Yep, you're right.
Do we have a motion to go ahead and forward this to City Council this evening, based on what we've all heard, or not heard, in the case of public hearing comments?
I'll make a motion to forward 2103-PUD-06 Orchard View PUD Amendment 1 to the City Council with a positive recommendation.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. If there are no further comments, will staff please call the roll?
Can you confirm who seconded that motion? You did, Dave.
Dave
Thank
Schmitz.
you. Ms. Boljaric,
Yes.
Ms. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Horkay,
Yes.
Mr. Johns,
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher,
Yes.
Mr. Maui,
Yes.
Mr. McCarty,
No.
Mr. Schmitz.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you. Moving on to Midland South PUD, 2103-PUD-07. Caleb, are you still attending virtually?
Yep, I'm attending virtually and in here.
Excellent.
All right.
Caleb, this
evening.
is Pam. I just wanted to let you know, we're going to stop presenting for a second to pull up the video, so that's why the screen goes blank, just so everyone knows.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So good evening, Commission. For the record, Caleb Ernest with the Community Development Department. The item presented before you tonight is a change of zoning request from the SF4 Single Family High Density District to the Midland South PUD District. This area is approximately 3.6 acres and is currently zoned SF4 district. The area is located generally at the northeast corner of South Union Street and Roosevelt Street, south of the Midland Trail and southeast of the Grand Junction Plaza. This PUD proposes modifying general development, design, and landscaping standards to allow for the development of a townhouse project. This item was introduced at the February 8th City Council meeting. This item is up for only a public hearing tonight. It has been properly noticed and advertised. Staff has received public comments, which have been updated on the agenda. You may need to refresh your page again just to make sure that all of the public comments have been uploaded on there. I did upload them as recent as 7:30 tonight. Justin Moffett of Old Town Designs and other representatives are here to present details of the project. They are available to answer any questions, as am I if you have any for staff. And Pam, if you refresh the agenda, the petitioner's presentation should be uploaded there. Please and thank you.
Good evening, Justin Moffett with Old Town Companies here to share plans for Midland South PUD. I'm going to run quickly through a slide deck sharing kind of high-level details of what we're proposing, and then we have a short video that has kind of a fly-through of what we intend to develop here. If you'll advance the next slide for me. Just to give you a little context as far as location, this property is surrounded by Midland Trail to the north, Cherry Street to the east, Roosevelt to the south, and Union Street to the west. Our western neighbor is Westfield Friends Church. And to the north is a 5-acre parcel that we'll be talking about next that's part of the proposed expansion of the Union Square PUD. And of course, to the northwest is the Grand Junction Plaza area. Scroll forward. Again, just over 3.5 acres here. Existing 4 existing homes that we have purchased from a group of private sellers, including Union Bible College. And here is a layout of the proposed townhome development. We envision a mix of unit types that include front-load product along the Midland Trail so that the prominent elevation faces the trail and is oriented towards the pedestrian corridor. And then the rest of the units would be rear-loaded garages on alleys. We try to pay attention to the need for some on-street parking to mitigate any new congestion that we might add to the neighborhood. And what is unique in this plan, as opposed to many developments we've seen that are townhome developments, is that each unit has its, in addition to an oversized 2-car garage, has a true driveway for guest parking. If you'll advance for me here. You'll see a distinction in the elevation types. We just use this slide to show the difference between A units and B units. So B would be the units that we would consider front loading, where the garage and the main front door are on the same plane, and then the A units are the rear loaded garages on the alley with the prominent front elevation facing out. The goal was to put all the true fronts of the units out to the public realm, and have all the alley corridors interior to the project. If you'll scroll forward. This is a conceptual elevation. Today we're just presenting a PUD as a master plan for consideration. We would have to come back through the process to nail down final development plan and the final architecture per my understanding of the rules. But we believe this is a close representation of what we would intend to construct here. We thought that it would be appropriate to have something that has a traditional architecture in the downtown area. We consider this kind of a mix of American farmhouse and craftsman architecture. What you see here represents a 4-unit building. Each of the units are, for sale townhomes, 3 stories tall. Main level is garage and living area. Second level is open floor plan concept, kitchen, dining, great room, and then third level is bedrooms. Something unique that we work to create here is large outdoor living rooms. In all of the Old Town Design Group model homes that we've ever built, I think a unique feature that we've offered is large outdoor living spaces. It's been very popular with our home buyers, and we felt like our townhomes deserve that same treatment. And so in this elevation, you see that second level balcony is not just a little deck that you see on a lot of townhomes, kind of a Juliet balcony. That's an 8 to 10 foot deep by 22 foot wide outdoor living room. And so we think that will really fit kind of that downtown urbanish type living that we think will be popular in downtown Westfield. Again, just orienting towards the site plan layout. The previous unit I just shared with you was the A unit. And then the next one that's a little grainier in this shot is the B unit, is the facade that would face the Midland Trail. And again, these are character images. We've worked pretty hard to make sure that these are floor plans that represent what we would intend to build. But we understand that we have to come back through the process to get approval on the final architecture. Advance for me here. I'll just run through this really briefly. Just the floor plan concepts. Again, main level with front entry garage, and then buyer option of either kind of a living flex room or a bedroom space. If we scroll to the second level, you'll see open living concept, kitchen, dining, great room with large balcony areas. We tried to offset units front to back so that some had balconies at the front of units, some of them had it at the back. So create a little more sense of privacy. And then third level is, again, just living space, again, large, kind of very similar to what we put in our custom cottage homes, nice size master suites with large closets and bath suites. With that, if you'll entertain me, I would like to, if we can pull up with staff, have a fly through that would be a little more descriptive of how the site lays out. Our architects at Cooler Design did a pretty good job of acknowledging some of the conditions on the site. Probably the better trees that we'd work to preserve would be along the Midland Trail. We provide a little setback there. We in the site plan, you'll see that we provided a very healthy setback from Roosevelt, so that if there are trees along that corridor, we could preserve them. But we acknowledge that Roosevelt needs improvement, resurfacing, curbing, addition of on-street parking. Right here, this is flying along the Midland Trail. To the right, you see Westfield Friends Church. Apologize, we're moving pretty quickly. There's a lot to show. But this is kind of what you would experience with front elevations along the Midland Trail. I'm sure this will be uploaded in the public realm, so if people would like to watch it in slow motion and get a better view of it, they'll have an opportunity to. But our goal was to not have homogeneous architecture and really break up the facades throughout the development. Here, we're just kind of showing this next set of images, the parallel parking along Cherry and Roosevelt. So right now, we're heading south on Cherry, showing how we would add in curbing and on-street parking and would have nice front facades that faced out. And then we're turning right and heading west along Roosevelt. So to the left and to the south would be Union Bible College's property. These would be private streets, and we would maintain them, but we still have, traditional street width. So in addition to having the addition of on-street parking and private driveways, there would be space for on-street parking as well, interior to the development, along with, of course, sidewalks throughout for pedestrian access to downtown. Again, we are heading west in this shot, and you're seeing now the backside of Westfield Friends Church. Now we're turning south, and Westfield Friends Church to our right to the west, and heading back to Roosevelt. Acknowledging the two product types along the Midland Trail, again, with having the garage is oriented with a front door adjacent to the garage. So this product really has dueling front doors, one that faces out towards the Midland Trail, and one that would face the interior where the parking and driveway would be. We understand that limiting pedestrian access to the trail is important. We don't want to see 20 different private curb cuts to the trail. It creates a safety issue. So we'd work with the city to make sure that we had likely a singular access point, but I think we really would defer to the city on that to see what the city prefers. Again, showing product type here with kind of the dual front doors. Similar floor plan concept to the previous image I showed you for the rear load product. And I will kind of summarize and wrap up here, just showing you some additional elevations of the product I previously showed you in the slide deck. We have had multiple conversations with Westfield Friends Church. We've worked to make sure that we address their concerns as a neighbor. I've even talked about potentially swapping a little property to meet some of their needs. I would say it's been a very collaborative conversation. We hosted a neighborhood meeting last week. Did not have many attendees, to be honest with you. We've exchanged some emails with people that had some follow-up questions. Have had no major concerns raised to us so far, but we see this as the first step in a process, and we'll look forward to hearing what questions or concerns additional citizens have or the Plan Commission has. In our review of kind of the guiding framework of the downtown comp plan, we feel like this is an appropriate product type for getting kind of an urban density in the downtown area. That was the view of the Grand Junction Master Plan addendum, and we're hopeful that this will be well received. You're aware that we're working on several other commercial projects north of the Midland Trail. It was our view that the Midland Trail served as a good buffer between kind of the commercial multifamily for rent and to the south, where it becomes more of a traditional residential neighborhood, that for sale product would be most appropriate on this site. And so that's what we envisioned here at a price point of $350,000 to $450,000. With that, I'll stop and thank you for your time. Glad to take questions at the appropriate moment. Thank you.
Thank you. This is in front of us for a public hearing. It is now 8:59, and I will open the public hearing on the Midland South PUD.
Yes, at this time I have 3 cards. The first one is Melody Jones.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Hi, commissioners and staff. It's nice to see you. I'm here tonight as a downtown resident. It's Melody Jones, for the record. I live at 211 Mill Street. I can see all of this from my front porch. And I'm here to say I totally embrace this change. I think it'll be excellent, and I'm excited to know that it's Old Town that's bringing it to Westfield. I do have some concerns as a former park director about the Midland Trace Trail, not only with this project, but the one that I know Justin's going to address in a minute on the north side of the trail as well, and that is buffering it. Currently, if you leave Union Street and take that trail over to Cherry Street, it is a complete tree canopy with no visibility really of what is on either side. When construction comes in, I know those trees will get damaged. Some of them probably aren't in the best of health anyways. And so we'll lose that tree canopy, and in the visualization that Justin just showed, it was very open. I would like to ask for a buffer to be planted, not only with shade trees to recreate that canopy, but also understory trees and bushes to help with the screening of the trails. Ultimately, trails are linear parks. It's a way for us to escape our urban environment and enjoy the outdoors, even though we are right in the downtown corridor or downtown area. So that's one of my concerns. The other one is Cherry Street. Cherry Street has no sidewalks and is very narrow. If you drive down it now, you have to stop to let another car pass. I know there's going to be an upgrade of Jersey Street that's being proposed, and I would just like the Planning Commission and staff to evaluate Cherry Street as part of this project and to see if that road can actually be widened to accommodate 2 cars and pedestrian traffic on both sides, because I think that's imperative for our downtown. There was one other thing. I can't remember. So I guess that's it. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Okay, next I have Steve Latour.
While Steve's coming forward, I'll remind virtual attendees that now is your opportunity to be typing away to let us know if you have comments you would like to offer on this as well, so that when we finish with Stephen, whoever it is that's following him, I believe we have 3 participants in the House that will make certain they hopefully have your comments and can proceed then without further delay. Floor is yours, Steve.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Latour. I'm a Westfield resident at 4771 Abigail Drive. But tonight I'm here to also introduce myself to you as the Westfield Chamber of Commerce Executive Director. And a month ago was named the Executive Director of the Downtown Westfield Association. So it will be a combined job for me going forward, and we'll be working with both operations of organizations in the same house. As such, as part of the DWA Executive Director now, I've been asked to be the staff administrator of the Grand Junction Task Group. And that group was presented with this proposal from Old Town Construction, had an opportunity to review it. Their questions were submitted and responded to by Old Town with all of the questions being answered. And so a letter of endorsement was presented to this body through the materials that you have today on behalf of the Grand Junction Task Group. I will just add that in my role with the Chamber and having had an opportunity to speak with some businesses, I know that with some of the incoming companies that we have coming to Westfield, especially from folks that will be relocating from around the country, this type of housing in the downtown area that will be adjacent to Park Street, hopefully the Union Station area and other amenities that are downtown, is what future residents will be looking for in Westfield as we continue to grow. They're coming from really all the corners of the United States and some from bigger cities that are used to a pedestrian-friendly space that can easily get access to trails and also access to restaurants and other amenities. With the recent announcement that the library is planning to locate downtown, this will really, we believe, will be good housing that will be eaten up quick by folks that are used to that type of amenity where they're at now around the country. So we're excited about what this means for downtown and what direction that this is taking the city. And so the Grand Junction Task Group endorses it, and we're happy to share that with you. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, the last card I have at this time is Greg Rose.
Good evening. My family lives at 229 Roosevelt Street, which is just opposite of the east entrance there to this development. We're not overly enthusiastic about it. It seems like to me to be pretty dense development for a small area. And given the PUD ordinance, it seems like it doesn't allow for some of the things that ordinance would tend to encourage, like open spaces or protect the environmental integrity of the site, enhance appearance of the neighborhoods and so forth. But we have some particular concerns beyond that, just the density, because I think the ordinance calls for 56 units. I don't look like they're doing that many there, but I think that's what I read. A couple things. Number one, Roosevelt Street's not really a street. It's actually an alley. And according to my survey, it's 16.5 feet wide. So is the developer going to give, the city the additional footage on the other side to actually create a street? That street is not centered in that right of way. Actually, it encroaches on my property about 2 foot all the way across. And as over the years, because we've lived there for a long time, as they pave, they keep getting a little further in my direction, I think. And so in the intersection there on Cherry Street, my property line, my stake is out there about 15 foot in that intersection. So it's on a diagonal. So it encroaches about 15 feet on my property, and there's no right-of-way, because this here is all, I think, still meets and bounds. I don't think it's been platted. And so if you come Cherry Street, coming along Cherry Street, the right side is subdivision, the left side's meets and bounds. And that's one reason why the street's still fairly narrow. The other thing is, so if they get that 5-foot setback and the alley's not widened, then that building there on the corner, the intersection of Roosevelt and Cherry, will be near as far from my property line as my house is from my property line. Because I had set back 25 feet, that alley's only 16.5 feet, and then if they go 5 more feet. So unless, I don't know, I don't see that much detail there, so I don't know if they're going to widen Roosevelt Street to, standard street, which I think is like 30 some feet maybe. You might know more about, their street requirements. The other thing is visibility there on the corner, because they have no sight triangle there. So when you pull up that intersection, folks come pretty fast down Cherry Street, because it's a fair distance from the state highway down to 171st Street, so people tend to pick up speed. And we've had accidents there in the past, so, if somebody can't see around that corner, unfortunately, the southbound lane's right against that building, so if you stick your nose out there, you might get it taken off. So the density of the street, the other thing's the drainage. We have no storm sewers in that area. And the one little drain, I ran one through my property years ago. There was a 12-inch drain that ran through the property just north of us. And so when that water backs up on the other side of my property, it goes through my drain, perks up on the road, and then goes over the surface down to towards the railroad track. And so that's the other concern. So drainage, the road, and then the other concern is, I don't know if this is a good buffer project, because you're basically got a 3-story building there right up against, we're facing them, they're right there. And so we're kind of sandwiched in between Union Bible College, which I think the city has approved a cafeteria there in behind our house and parking lot. And we're sandwiched in between them and this development, and the only residences there are ours and the folks just to the west of us, Mr. and Mrs. Wright. So, I don't know if the city's amenable in the future. I mean, it kind of sandwiches us, it puts us in a bad position, basically, as I think is the value of our home. But the biggest concern is Roosevelt Street itself. I don't, whether it's going to be widened, and if so, are they going to, give that easement, and then you're going that right away, and then are they going to center the street in that right of way and move it a little bit to the north? So it's not so encroaching so far accidentally on my property, because if you see it in the picture there, yeah, it kind of encroaches on the property because it just keep coming my way. And that street right there is currently collapsing because there's always standing water right there. If you go down there today, there's a mud puddle just if you turn off Cherry there on the north side. So, personal opinion, this development's just a bit dense for this area. I mean, basically, you're pretty much buildings and pavement from lot line to lot line of the 3 acres. There's a few green strips and some trees I'm glad to see. The parallel parking doesn't really bother me as long as it's sufficient. I think it's a little better now knowing that, you know, the various residences also have driveways, which is nice. So I think the city should seriously look at that street, what they can do in that, you know, with that. I mean, it definitely is going to need more right-of-way, I think. So those are basically my comments, and so.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other people in our presence right now that care to speak, or do we have emails now that we need to take a look at?
I have not received any emails.
No. All right. Ample opportunity has been there. Nobody else is forthcoming, so it's 9:11. I'll close the public hearing on this item. And if Mr. Moffett would like to come up and address what we've heard so far, then we'll go through commissioner comments.
Yeah, I'll be brief. Appreciate Mr. Rose's comments. We do understand that Roosevelt has some limitations. That's been a point of conversation with city engineer's office. And I would say the primary point of conversation with Westfield Friends Church and a main point of our dialogue with Westfield Friends the last 6 months is how do we collaborate to widen the apron at Union Street and make sure that it's adequate for two-way traffic flow. We will certainly, when we go through the process, be providing a full engineered site plan. And now, I don't want to diminish what's been presented already. This is an engineered plan, but we'll certainly make sure that we've provided the appropriate right-of-way for ingress, egress, and we're well aware that the pavement surface is not much more than a driveway at this point on Roosevelt, so it'll probably require to be a complete rebuild. So we're working with city engineer's office on that, so that will come in the future. And then drainage, I think Plan Commission members are well aware that, you know, we have to comply with all the local ordinances, so it's likely that you'd see a subsurface detention system. And because we have Grassy Branch legal drain due north, we have the ability to outlet directly to the creek. And so we'll be able to actually improve the current circumstances with no drainage. We have to capture, collect, and convey without causing problems for our neighbors. So we think we'll be able to successfully navigate that issue. As for density, and maybe the most important issue Mr. Rose brought up is sightlines, and I think that's a great point that we'll want to pay attention to is, you know, do we have appropriate setbacks to that corner unit? If we don't, we might have to lose a unit. We might have to make some modifications there. So we'll have to review that with staff and our engineer when we bring this forward. Today, we're really talking about the PUD and the appropriate use of this site, which we believe, from our understanding of the downtown comp plan, that this complies with the spirit of the proposed direction of downtown Westfield. So with that, I'll stand aside. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go through commissioner comments, starting with Cindy Spoljarek.
Thank you. I hear an echo, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're sounding great here. Keep doing what you're doing.
I want to agree with the things that have already been said by our public, and especially Melody's concerns about the trail and the environment that we currently have going through there in ways that could even be more improved when we're talking about a lot more building massing here. We have the advantage with these two projects on north and south of the trail coming through at the same time, you know, to really look at that trail section holistically and make sure that it's where it needs to be. And so, you know, I want to see that really paid a lot of attention to. I have a broader concern with this project and all the others that we're seeing for the downtown in terms of our roads and how we are going to tackle access circulation with this number of units. And I'm just not aware, and that's a conversation we'll probably have to talk with John and Jeremy to figure out how we're going to handle this many folks coming down here now, and then add that to what we hope to get in visitors at the plaza in our continued growth. So I'm not seeing that we have the right infrastructure for this project right now, so I need to feel like we can get there. I haven't gone through all the language yet, but I'll do that this week. Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen Berkman.
I'll just echo the street concerns as well. Those roads are very narrow, and of course would like to have all the neighbors' concerns taken into consideration tonight. I like this architecture a lot on this particular project with I think it looks like Westfield. And so I'll leave it at that because I have other comments coming up on the next petition. So thank you. I appreciated such a professional presentation, Justin, as well, so we could really get a feel for what you're thinking. So thank you for the time and effort you put into that.
Thank you. Randy Graham.
No questions, comments this time? Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Johns.
I'd have to say that I like the project from the standpoint that it is offering privately held residences in the downtown area. I can see that a lot of the other projects we're looking at have to do with apartment dwellers. We need, in my opinion, to bring some real ownership opportunities to our central city area. I would echo the concerns that we've heard from the other commissioners at this point in time, but I think this is a pretty important, pretty great project for this area at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Kelleher.
The biggest concern I have, and it's been mentioned already, is do we have the infrastructure to support this, or at least this size of, this number of dwelling units here. I like the dwelling units. I think they're unique and they kind of look like Westfield. My question for staff is, it says in this ordinance that they will not follow our architectural standards. Instead, the renderings will be, they will be like the renderings. So my concern for staff is, how do you administer that? Because you're given nothing except some pictures and saying that it has to be like these, but then no architectural standards whatsoever. So I'm not quite sure how you work with that. Melody's comments on the Midland Trace, I think, should be taken seriously, because I think a trail, especially in downtown, is meant to be more than just a sidewalk. It is, as she stated, supposed to be where you kind of get out into nature or get away from, high density city and things like that. So I think that is a very important thing for us to hear. Again, I know Justin will do a great job, but again, this is not written for just Justin, which makes me go back to the architectural standards and how staff will administer those. That's it.
Thank you. Andre Maui.
Yeah, just a couple comments. First, to carry on what Dr. Kelleher just was talking about with architectural standards, I really appreciate that we can already see, Justin, you know a lot of the things we're looking for, and it's a lot of what you already want to propose in your development anyway, with outward-facing primary architectural facades and things like that. The one area that struck me, though, especially in the presentation, it's not really visible that much in the exhibits yet, is some of the ends. We can see where you dressed up some of the ends that are like at key corners, but other areas just have that plain end that just, I know they're not gonna get the same attention as the outdoor living spaces, but anything to break a couple of those ends up might help, because you do see them as you're going down the trail and along the streets and so forth. The comment about the trail, I had that same impression. I was gonna mention that as well, even before I heard others, so I just wanna emphasize that as well. And maybe from two perspectives, not only preserving the essence of the trail, but maybe even protecting those outdoor living spaces from the trail. It does look really open when you see that presentation, and I don't know, with plantings and everything, how much it may not just be plantings, but maybe you need planters or something like that to really give a good break there. And other than that, the public comment tonight, I think, was very good and spot on with some key things to take a look at. I won't repeat all those, so thank you.
Thank you. Victor?
I'll also try to be brief. I did a lot of Mr. Maui's and others, commissioners' comments, especially with the side facade and when it comes to the tree canopy along the Midland. Something that hasn't been mentioned yet is the buffer between the Westfield Friends Church and this project here, just making sure there is an adequate buffer in terms of there. But in the rendering we saw, there was, I don't know, a couple of line trees and so forth. I don't know if there needs to be some sort of wall or just, I don't know, whatever Westfield Friends Church sees fit. Just want to make sure that that is accommodated. And then just lastly, I just want to say I think a high bar has been set in terms of presentations. I love the videos, so I really appreciate all the work that's been put into it. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Schmitz.
Not much to add, just having spent a lot of time on the sub-district addendum back when that went through, and spent a lot of time with the Grand Junction Group. I appreciate the consistency and the way this project basically addresses the objective for this area in the sub-district addendum. So, but I think great comments brought up with respect to the trail and, excuse me, and the traffic pattern in the roadways. So look forward to seeing this as it goes forward.
Thank you. Pretty much concur with all previous comments. Don't have anything unique to add, so I won't get repetitive. So look forward to your taking our comments to heart and seeing what you come back with. Is there anything that you've heard from the commission that you want to further address, or are you good for right now?
I think you've given us some good homework to work on and bring back to you. I think there's probably a bigger community conversation that needs to happen about infrastructure. The reality is this is property that could be used under SF4 today, which is high-density single-family. Again, we feel like this is appropriate for the Grand Junction plans. But really, there's maybe a disconnect between, having no development versus, this level. At the end of the day, whether we put 10 homes here or 40-some townhomes, it's new development that's going to impact the roads. And so something's going to happen here. And I think that really is incumbent on us and to partner with the Department of Engineering on to make sure that we have adequate solutions.
Okay. I'm hoping that engineers continue to stay virtually in the meeting and taking notes, and you guys will have a great conversation. So moving on.
I would just reiterate.
You're going to go ahead and weigh in?
We are actively looking at both drainage and infrastructure concerns in this area. With the impetus being this project, we are taking a close look at both of those things.
Okay. I expected you were. Wasn't trying to put you on the spot. Just a reminder, or to just everybody, that's a collaboration. That's one of the more important ones. So move on from Midland South to Union Square at Grand Junction PUD text amendment, 2103 PUD 08. Caleb is the presenter. Justin can stay at the podium. Somebody speak first.
Yep. Good evening, Commission. Thank you. For the record, Caleb Ernest with the Community Development Department. The item presented before you tonight is an amendment to the Union Square at Grand Junction PUD District, modifying the concept plan, character exhibits, architectural, and parking standards. This area is approximately just under 5 acres and is currently zoned the Union Square at Grand Junction PUD, LBH, Local Business Historic District, and EI Enclosed Industrial District. The area is located east of Grand Junction Plaza, north of the Midland Trace Trail, and generally near the southeast intersection of South Union Street and State Road 32. The petitioner is requesting an amendment to the Union Square Grand Junction PUD, as well as rezoning the LBH and EI districts to the Union Square at Grand Junction PUD, while modifying the concept plan, character exhibits, architectural, and parking standards of the original PUD. The concept plan and character exhibits are being updated to include a new concept plan and character exhibits for the original site, as well as the additional real estate. This item was introduced at the February 8th City Council meeting. It is up for a public hearing tonight. It has been properly noticed and advertised. And again, with the last, as current with the last project as well, please refresh the agenda just to make sure that all the public comment exhibits have been updated. They were updated at 7:30 tonight. So we did receive public comments. They should be updated. Justin Moffett of Old Town Designs and other representatives are here. They are available to answer any questions and will be presenting here tonight. I'm also available with questions if you have any for staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Justin?
Mic on, okay. Justin Moffett with Old Town Companies for the record. I'm going to kind of replay just a little history so everybody's familiar. For those who weren't on Plan Commission, we brought this through in 2019. We have worked with the city for several years now on a mixed-use project known as Union Square, just north of Grand Junction Plaza. And if you'll scroll to the next slide for me, a little context here. This area, around 4 acres just north of the park. Parking has always been a driving factor in any potential plan that we had. We received approval for the Union Square PUD from Planning Commission and City Council fall of 2019. Subsequently, the City Council approved a TIF bond ordinance to help pay for infrastructure and parking in the project. In 2020, one of the main factors that we looked at throughout the year was kind of the alignment of State Road 32 and what would happen with that right of way. That certainly would have an influence over what we would plan here. We worked through quite a few drainage issues. There's a legal drain that requires encapsulation through the middle of the site, so we spent quite a bit of energy on planning that and working on permitting. So we didn't just sit around in 2020. We really put a lot of effort in, but didn't advance the construction detail because we wanted some confirmation on State Road 32 plans. But a bigger factor was the conversation around parking. We frequently were approached by business leaders downtown and also discussions with city administration and council members about parking strategies and how we might use our project to create more parking for the Grand Junction Plaza area and everything good that's happening on Park Street. If you'll scroll to the next slide for me. As we looked to find solutions to add parking to the downtown area, we discovered that we had the opportunity to purchase the property that's labeled as the expanded site. It's approximately 5 acres to the north of the Midland Trail, Cherry Street to the east, Union Street to the west, Grassy Branch Creek to the north. We were initially looking at this to simply add parking. I don't necessarily think it's a good use of land to just have a massive surface parking lot for that to be the only use of the site. So after a lot of conversation with city leadership, we looked at adding this to the Union Square PUD and creating some surface parking that would benefit the downtown businesses and add to the residential housing stock of downtown. So this is the proposed expansion area. And if you'll advance for me here. I'm going to just run through a little context of how we're proposing to incorporate this into the Union Square project. One of the hurdles with paying for structured parking in a downtown project is trying to figure out how to monetize the new assessed value. In suburban America, it's really challenging to drive rents high enough that you can pay for parking and the construction cost of Class A construction. So frequently in the state of Indiana, municipalities use TIF as an incentive to help cover parking that doesn't create any additional revenue for developers. So the concept images that we're sharing with you, specifically the building top left, meets the requirements of the Union Square PUD, the existing PUD, but what we show here is a concept that includes a parking garage inside the building. And so we wanted to show how we can meet the requirements of the existing PUD, but also add structured parking. The big gap was, how do we pay for it? And that's really a fiscal question for the city council to answer. We're really talking about land planning, land use with the Plan Commission, but I wanted you to have some context of what we're talking about here. So we wanted to figure out how to drive enough new assessed value in the downtown to create enough revenue to fully cover the cost of building a parking structure. So as we looked at this expansion site, we discovered that we could build additional multifamily So we're proposing, and I'll get to some images here, the addition of multifamily residential on this site and some light retail on the Union Street facing structure. And we can capture that increment and include it in the Union Square allocation area. And so we can capture that whole area and create a large enough TIF pool to fund a parking garage, fully fund a parking garage. And so that's the proposal that we're working on here. And we're proposing approximately 650 new parking spaces mixed between the expanded site and the existing Union Square site, a mixture of surface parking and structured parking and on-street parking. We'll certainly need a lot of those spaces to serve our tenants and businesses in our development. But we think that we'll be able to add at least 200 spaces at any time throughout the day that would be free and available to public use. So the images you see here represents not final construction images. We're not here to seek architectural development plan approval. We're really here to talk about the bigger idea of adding structured parking. But we're representing the scale of structures that we would intend to build. So top left, you'll see the existing Union Square site with multifamily and commercial uses. And then top right, you'll see building proposed along Union Street that faces the new Grand Junction Plaza area. Just scroll forward for me. Just in kind of site diagram here, you'll see the large-scale building on the left again that would house a parking structure. Top right, we're proposing an office building. We would not speculatively build an office building. It would be build to suit. But in all of our activities so far, we've had a lot of interest from office community who want to be part of this, the renaissance of downtown Westfield. And then in bottom right, we would propose a food and beverage concept. We had a lot of favorable reaction to a building we called the Union, which was a community gathering space. And so we'll share some images of what that could be. If you'll scroll forward for me. Again, this is massing architecture, just to show you the scale of structures that could be. The Union project, bottom of the screen here, we think is maybe a little edgy. It's kind of a modern feel to it. A lot of the structures and designs for downtown, the Grand Junction Plaza area, definitely tend towards modern architecture. So, really looking for community feedback on if this is appropriate here. But we think it maybe pushes the limits a little and could be exciting. But we're here to collaborate and would welcome feedback on it. But as shown here, and to give a sense of scale, we did a project with Sun King in Carmel called it was a food hall concept. And this is a similar scaled structure to that. And so if that's a reference point for you, that makes some sense. We see something that offers restaurants and energy and activity for the downtown area. If you'll scroll forward for me. Just another shot of this, just going to give a sense of how it could look at night and streetscape and how it would feel. For me, it was more of a give context of how the plaza area feels between the structures and how the on-street parking works. We're still working with some pretty complicated legal drain situations through the site, so we're going to have to leave some of these open gaps throughout the project area. Just scroll forward here. And so that's an update just as far as the current conversation with city administration on this proposed move towards structured parking for the formerly approved Union Square site. And this is the proposed expansion area. Again, contemplating 3 to 4 story for rent multifamily structures here. Again, the building labeled as number 1 along Union Street would have main level retail. And then this project is served by surface parking. And currently, as shown, it is overparked. It is more than what would be needed for this project by approximately 80 to 100 spaces. We could actually improve upon that if we put podium structures underneath the multifamily buildings. We don't think that's necessary for this project, but we wanted to show what's possible that would provide surface parking for both what's happening kind of in the Cherry Street area with Field Brewing and all that unique activity up there, and Grand Junction Plaza here. So again, this would have a component of public parking and private parking. Just as far as timeline, we would see this as a phase 2 to the Union Square project. One of our conversations with city leadership is to provide some parking here immediately, as in summer of '21. There's an existing structure here that should be coming down this spring, and we'll be providing some surface parking for the downtown area right now. And then hopefully, if approved, we would get the parking garage online in the future, and then come back and do this as a phase 2 to the project. Just to give you a sense of what's here today versus what's proposed. Bottom right's existing structure here. I think the city would be glad to see that removed and at least used as a parking lot now for downtown. Top left is representative of what we would intend to construct here. Again, following all the existing character image and design requirements of the Union Square PUD, we would have to bring back to this body for review in the future. So again, this is just land use discussion tonight. With that, I will pause and thank you for your time and look forward to questions and comments from you and the public. Thank you.
Thank you. This item is before us for a public hearing. So I will commence that at 9:36. Do we have any of the 3 remaining souls that aren't part of the body that care to speak? Melody?
Yes, we have 2 cards.
Okay.
Melody Jones can come up first.
And once again, to anybody listening in and attending virtually, if you are inclined to want to comment, please use this time to start getting in touch with us at the planners@westfield.in.gov website or email address that I should have mentioned earlier, so that we'll have your input by the time the speakers in the House are completed. Melody, house is yours. The floor is
So
yours.
once again, for the record, Melody Jones. I live at 211 Mill Street. I have a question right off the bat, really for staff. I was one of the original Grand Junction Task Group members, and over all the different design groups that we had, one of the things that we identified in this particular area, just adjacent to the apartments, was trails through what is a wooded wetland. And we actually called it the Emerald Necklace. Some of you may remember if you ever attended those meetings. And it was really to enhance, you can't, well, I don't know, I guess they're gonna fill in part of those wetlands, but the idea was to run along Grassy Branch. That trail obviously cuts, or that creek cuts right through Grand Junction. If you're on Mill Street today, it will extend down and goes, they kind of got off the corridor by running it along the new street that wasn't planned back when we were originally looking at the waterway and trails. But it was called the Emerald Necklace, and you can see the depression of the creek, and so part of this development encumbers that, and it would then continue over to Cherry Street. The idea was that it would go all the way up and connect to the trail system. We were supposed to have Cool Creek Trail that would all go all the way up to Old Friends Cemetery, or not Old Friends, I'm sorry, to Freedom Trail Park. So it's part of the park plan. So I just was curious as to, are we looking at that at all with this development? And then another comment that I have, and the neighbors that are still here are probably gonna hate me, but I love the idea of this food court and what they're doing, and I told my 30-year-old son that I would ask, could we please have something that stays open past 10 and 11 o'clock at night in our downtown? You know, we've got the new theater. They're gonna start, you know, they're just across the alleyway here. If they have a performance and it gets out at 10 o'clock, it would really be nice to have some place to go to dine and maybe have a cocktail or two with some friends, and, you know, some music. My backyard almost abuts Chiba, and so in the summertime I can sit on my patio and kind of enjoy that music, but it's very filtered, and we're lacking that in our downtown, and I just think this is a great opportunity to maybe add a little bit of nightlife to Westfield. Sorry if other people don't want to hear that. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Okay, Steve Latour.
Good evening again, Steve Latour with the Westfield Chamber of Commerce and the Downtown Westfield Association. I can say that this project in particular is of great interest to the Chamber and to Downtown Westfield Association and all of the members that we represent. As the amateur sports capital of the world, or quickly becoming known as that around the country, really Westfield is the convention center for all of Hamilton County. And we have a fantastic facility with Grand Park. We are missing the retail and nightlife aspect of being able to be a convention center that keeps the dollars and the people right here in our hometown. Recently, the Wellbeing Coalition of Westfield released a survey, and one of the top things that they got back from that survey was a lack of nightlife. We think that this area, coupled with the Union Square project and that building that was just shown, that Justin had shown, will help us achieve that and will be the start of what will bring this space to the to life. The Chamber on February 4th held a coffee at Field where we had about 30 businesses and individuals represented at the coffee. And Justin came and presented this project to that group. I think he and Old Town Companies have gone above and beyond just the public comment, which is required, to introduce this project to invested folks downtown and people that would be interested in it. The overwhelming consensus was that this was long overdue. This was something that would be welcomed by the business community and would be something that we could continue to showcase here in Westfield. On a side note, I will say, as the HOA president of the Ashford Place neighborhood, which has 80 homes at the corner of 186th Street and Moontown Road, I shared this information with our private Facebook group, talked to a lot of folks. They couldn't be more than ecstatic for the potential to have something like this in our downtown. I know that sometimes we are, rightly so, very focused on what those living in downtown and how they feel about these sorts of projects. But we have to remember that Westfield is a very large city now, and there are people on both sides that want to be able to stay here in town, drive just a few minutes to have a great experience, work downtown, or see friends that would be living there. Finally, I'll share that the Downtown Association, who's responsible for the farmers market, has already made the decision to relocate the farmers market this summer to Mill Street, and we're working with the city to make that move. But that additional parking that Justin had highlighted will become pivotal for the farmers market next summer and future summers, as the farmers market looks to be permanently on Jersey Street and near the plaza area. And that's just one of, in working with the Westfield Welcome folks, one of hundreds of programs that are being planned to begin in 2022 in the Grand Junction Plaza area. So all that to say, it's time for something like this to come to Westfield, and that this will be the beginning of a renaissance in downtown, and we look forward to being a part of making that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a new taker for public comments.
Judy Stanley Shock, 209 West Main Street, Westfield, Indiana. I've known for a long time, this was coming and so forth. 209 West Main Street happens to be just west of Mill Street. And I've lived there all but 6 years of my life. And I've raised children and grandchildren in that home too. But it's a beautiful home and historic home, and it does have some ties to the Underground Railroad and the history. And yes, being a fifth-generation Quaker Westfield person, I am very indebted to the history of Westfield and what it brings to this community. It is the richest history in Hamilton County. I've known Justin all of his life and his family. I just ask that this, if we're going to have this building, we need to take a look at what all of this downtown looks like. that it's all cohesive. Maybe it draws in some historical character. Yes, it is downtown. It is Westfield proper. We have the east side and we have the west side, you know, west of 31. You know, I've seen for 74 years, I have seen many, many changes and so forth, especially on Main Street. But I just ask that, you know, I'm not against change or anything like that, because I do it all the time. In fact, I have to just explain last night to my husband where I put something else, because I moved it in the kitchen. So I change things a lot. But we have to make it cohesive. What's it going to look like downtown when all of this comes together? You know, is it going to look like Carmel? Is it going to look like Fishers? I remember saying that to the mayor years and years ago. And he says, oh no, we don't want to look like Carmel. And my thought is, because I've traveled this state to government entities, because that was my job, and I've traveled all over the continental U.S. and Mexico and Canada, and I like to go through small towns. And so I'm just concerned about keeping the quaintness that most of you probably moved here for, because Westfield's a quaint small town. And I realize that growth, my dad told people in 1961, you better get ready because Indianapolis is coming out here. He worked for Eli Lilly for 35 years and drove back and forth. But we have to take a step back and make sure that we know what downtown Westfield and what our quaint community still stays quaint. If somebody's been to Carmel and Fishers and all these other places, they won't want to come to another place that looks the same as those, because that's kind of boring. If we can just keep a tad bit of our historical presence in our community, that would be wonderful, because we do have a very rich history. And if you're interested in Westfield history, I do give presentations on Westfield history and the Underground Railroad.
Thank you. Have we received any email correspondence on this?
We have not.
We have not. Okay. It's been ample time. I'll close the public hearing at 9:48. Is there anything that you've heard, Justin, that you'd like to respond to now?
Very briefly, I would like to respond to Melody's comment regarding the trail along the creek. I'll have to give Andy Cook credit. He has mentioned that to me many times, that creating a green belt along there is very important to him. And you know, and when we would bring a plan forward, we're going to make sure that we create some sort of buffer along the creek system there. And if a trail network is appropriate, that's not really our decision. I think that would be city planning that would drive that, but making sure that we provide some preservation space along there is important. So kind of hard to tell in this aerial image here, but a lot of it is an industrial, you know, concrete yard, and they're between there and the old structure on Union Street. A lot of scrub. I don't think you'd find, we've done quite a bit of engineering work already. I don't think you'd find any grand specimen tree in there. So I think for the most part, it's about canopy over the Midland Trail and preserving a green belt along the creek.
Thank you. We'll do a round of commissioner comments. Back to the top again with Kristen Berkman starting.
Okay, thank you. It was Judy, right? That was just up here. Is that right, Judy?
Yes.
Thanks to all of you that stayed this late too to speak, all of our 3 public speakers. That was very resilient of all 3 of you. I would echo some of her concerns, so I won't go back over them. I am also a little concerned about how this is all going to look at the end. And I'm not concerned about Old Town because I love your work and I am excited you're a part of it. But as these, and I'm just catching up, so I'll say that to Kevin too, and I can meet with Kevin offline on this whole Grand Junction. But I did spend quite a bit of time going through the addendum this afternoon. And what I wasn't clear on looking at the addendum was how everything is supposed to look in the downtown area. While there were some pictures and it talked about high-end materials, and perhaps I missed it, so I'm more than happy to get caught up on that. I'm just not sure what the look and feel of this area is supposed to be at the end of this project. So I'm excited about all the amenities and everything going on. But I did have a question for Justin, just for my kind of own learning. When you're showing the buildings you're showing tonight, which you all have put a lot of thought into, obviously, I'm just wondering, what is that design style? And is that what we want in this downtown going forward? Does it capture the charm of Westfield? Because as Judy was talking about, we've got Carmel, we've got Fishers, we've got Noblesville, who all have a similar vision of this work, live, play, right? I mean, that's not unique. So what's going to make us unique that we drive people into downtown Westfield? Because that's our charge and that's what we want here. So I know that's a big umbrella, Justin, of a concern that we can talk about offline. But that's just something that resonated with me as I went through the addendum this afternoon. It has a lot of good information, but I didn't feel the theme of what we're going to be doing in this downtown with it. I love all the green space preservation and trails also that Melody brought up all evening tonight, so I'm very much in support of all of that as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Randy Graham.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to speak. I'm very excited about this project. This is the anchor of downtown right here, being adjacent to the Grand Junction Park. That's why I sold my house in Centennial and moved downtown about 6 years ago. And I wanted to be like Melody downtown, but I couldn't get quite that downtown. But I'm close enough to walk or ride my bike. I couldn't be more pleased that Old Town is going to build this project. I think you can look at anything that they've built and see the quality and the integrity of the product. And I think they do an excellent job of doing exactly what Kristen's asking about making it fit into the community. And what's it going to look like in the end? It's not going to look like it does now. But this is the beginning of it. It's in the right place. It's at the right time. And I'm very excited about this project. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Mike Johns.
I guess I'd echo everything that Randy said. In addition to that, Justin, I'd also echo a little bit of what Judy Shuck said. We're really looking at two different pieces to this in my own mind. One section is we're looking at putting the development together as a whole in order to support that parking garage. And I truly believe if we're going to follow the comprehensive plan, if we're going to have a good walkable city, we need to have a parking garage. And I can't think of a better parking garage concept than one that would be buried inside of a building like you have, like you've proposed. So I'm totally in support of making that work and happen. At the same time, I think we need to try to preserve some of the historical aspects of the old Westfield. And you and I have talked about that, maybe incorporating some piece of the pharmacy into your building structure, maybe incorporating part of the fire department into your building structure. I think those would be important. My only other comment on the style of the buildings is I think your food court is maybe a little bit edgy, and that's something that we should consider, maybe could be tweaked a little bit to be more of a unique Westfield building. But what you're doing here is setting the tone for the growth of our city. We're right on the cusp of making it happen, and I think it's an exciting time for all of us, and thank you for your efforts.
Thank you. Dr. Kelleher?
Nothing at this time, thanks.
Thank you. Andre?
Yeah, thank you. So what Randy said actually summarizes my initial sentiments very well, and he said it also nicely and the way I would have said it. So I'll just say kudos to that, and I agree. I won't repeat all that. I have one question and one comment, both related to parking. For the surface parking at the North Midland site, it's kind of tucked away, which is exactly what we want visually for parking, because we don't have to look at it, but then people need to know it's there. So the comment is some creative wayfinding, I think, is going to be necessary, especially after, was it phase 2, I think you referred to, is built, where it looks like it's really dedicated to those structures. In reality, you've, like you said, overparked it to where that could have some public parking. We'll have to make that clear without, a neon outlined arrow pointing that direction, some creative way to do that nicely. And then the question, and normally I really hesitate to get too far into operational questions that I don't think belong among us, but in this particular case, it's a little bit unique. The roughly 200 or so parking spaces that you think would be available for the public between the both sites, is there going to be verbiage that somehow protects the availability of those after assigned or reserved spaces for tenants, for businesses, for Grubhub? We've seen a lot of spaces go to Grubhub lately. And the reason I think it's appropriate to ask that in this particular case is because of the TIF. And if that's what we're going to do to try to make all this happen, this parking, it feels like somehow we need to make sure that those get allocated to where we actually are adding public spacing and they don't end up just all reserved. So that was my question. Thanks.
Thank you. Victor?
Okay, so I've written down a handful of notes here, so that way I'm not so scatterbrained. First, on the previous project, I forgot to mention the colonial style of it. I love that. I think it does speak to Westfield. First, because I believe in transparency, just disclosure that I'm a Westfield Lions member, but I was not part of any of the land discussion and ownership with that. I have lived here my entire life, as I've said many times before, almost 28 years, so I appreciate our history, and I do appreciate you, Judy. You've done a lot for our community, and I appreciate you keeping our Underground Railroad heritage alive with that. Now, I think I saved it on the last one, so I think I can play it here, is my millennial card. I remember in 2019, I was at the town meeting that was here, and I was noted as the youngest member there, and someone pointed out, and I'm the youngest member here now. So I feel like I can kind of speak for the millennial crowd a little bit. And what really speaks to me in this project is the union. I even drew a little heart next to it. Because when I saw the image with the union at night lit up, I think that just really speaks to the future of Westfield with, the younger crowd is one day going to be the older crowd, and the younger crowd likes that type of building style. I think it's very evident in, Steve, you mentioned it, at chamber meetings or talking to neighbors or just anything of the sort, we're drifting towards that style, towards the future. I liked what was mentioned in terms of the renaissance of downtown. I think that is very much needed because without this project, we don't really have a downtown. We focus a lot about walkability. This helps that. It helps bring business downtown, so on and so forth. And when it comes to having a parking structure, 100% needed. People are really not wanting to go downtown in certain aspects, Park Street, Union Jack, et cetera, because there's nowhere to park. So that'll help remedy that and help thrive downtown, especially after what everyone's experienced over the past year. I like what you mentioned, Steve, with Westfield is the convention center of Hamilton County with Grand Park. I think that is very much true with me living out in that area. We are busy every weekend, so we need a destination spot here in Westfield, and this will definitely help remedy that. Just one last note, and I feel really cheesy for saying it, but we talk a lot about the style of Westfield, so I just came up with a little acronym here. I think our style is HIP, historical, industrial, and a little bit of Port Royale, and that speaks to the colonial style of the previous project. So I think with this and some other projects that's coming our way, it really speaks to the heritage of Westfield, so I'm excited for what's to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Schmitz.
Yeah, when you guys were coming back on this for an amendment to this, I was excited to hear that the main objective, the main purpose was to add land to it and be able to generate indoor parking garage, as well as additional surface parking, because that was one aspect of the plan originally, that we were adding a lot of scale, a lot of buildings, but non-committal with the parking issues. So I think this really addresses a potential shortcoming of the original plan. So I think it's great. Architectural issues, I'm sure you guys will do a great job and take the input that you've received from folks tonight and in all your other efforts to get public input, and put a facility, a project together that we'll all be proud of. That's all I have for now.
Thank you. Cindy Spoljarek.
Thank you. Some of this I don't want to say blame it on me, but, you know, I know that this council has certainly been really wanting to see a parking garage in the downtown. Knowing we have our giant investment in the Grand Junction Plaza, and then not really having parking to even program it and have people be able to get there, has been disheartening. So I know that I was a big advocate of wanting to see a garage built with this project. I am still concerned, even though this does add a few hundred spots potentially, with the amount of retail, the amount of residential units, and then you add in an office building, and we don't quite know, you know, how many people could be working there. And things like that. I guess just one of my concerns is, and maybe that's more of a council matter in addressing all this, is are there really enough spaces for the public to use? And I know that there's going to be some trade-offs. You know, during the day, people are gone, and so they won't need those spaces, those residents, and they'll be available for the workers potentially. But again, it's that mix of uses and getting it right to know then that we have those available public spots with this too. So, but in general, I am supportive of this project. I haven't gone through the ordinance language yet, but I will, and I'll get that to you this week. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll finalize just by commenting that I'm really amped up. We have been talking about this for so long. It is so great to see so many things that are actually happening. It seemed like the goal just kept going farther and farther out in front of us for so long. So it's really refreshing that we've got so much concrete stuff really in front of us to be able to make decisions on. So I think you've heard a pretty good load of information to address. Put your A-team on it. Look forward to having you back.
Mr. President, if I may just add one more thing. I
Well,
apologize. Just sparked to the thought when we were talking about the parking garage. One thing that I've always loved going down to Disney Springs specifically with the parking garages, they have green and red lights on if this parking spot is occupied or not. And I think with just the amount of density and amount of attraction we're going to have towards downtown, that just that little thing that can help someone's experience be that much better is just seeing, oh, parking spot's open and not having to drive constantly around. That also help with traffic flow. So.
Okay. As I mentioned at the top of the meeting, yesterday or whenever that was, the Harmony PUD amendment for a sign issue has been continued. And there's a handful of other already continued items, and we get down to reports and comments. And up front, we're doing community development first today.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, just real quick, want to just touch on this last topic that we were talking about. Just the broad comments about downtown vision, I guess, and style, and what's this going to look like. And I think it's something that we will certainly need to revisit, but I think the Grand Junction plan from day one, I spent a lot of time talking about that, and I think at the end of the day, and Melody, correct me if I'm wrong here, I think it's, you know, I think it was intentional that we didn't set a style for downtown. I think, you know, the word eclectic was used so many times. I mean, we want to be unique. We don't want to be downtown Carmel. We don't want to be downtown Fishers or Noblesville. We want to be downtown Westfield. And, you know, to have unique buildings and different architecture and a mixture of old and new was talked about extensively. And there's no set style and there's no set picture book of what that's going to look like. And I think that was very intentional. So we can get creative projects like this. So people can, you know, use their creativity and bring us something exciting. So just a comment on that. But we can move on. We can continue that discussion down the road. But in the interest of time here, I wanted to also touch on, you guys may be hearing a little bit in the rumor mill about our business park and North Point 2 and comp plan and this and that. So I think if you look around and look at our comp plan, we have pretty well built out or at least zoned and planned the business park areas that are identified in our comp plan, right? I mean, there's probably a few pockets here and there, but by and large, I think we've built that plan, right? And we've done a good job at it, and we keep getting interest from folks on where can we go next, right? So I think what the planning staff is doing at this point, we like to explore the idea of doing a kind of a township-wide study, for lack of a better word, just to see where we go next, right? Where are our next business park location or locations that make sense for this community? So that's hopefully what we're going to be pursuing, hopefully even this year yet. We're still at the very early stages of those discussions. So there's nothing formally is being announced here tonight, but I did want to give you a heads up that we are having those conversations in the background. North Point 2 kind of brought this to the forefront. We're not necessarily really reacting to them, but it definitely brought to the forefront. It is time for us to look at this. So like I said, we're going to be doing hopefully a jurisdiction-wide kind of assessment and study in the coming months here, hopefully, and we'll get a better idea jurisdiction-wide, you know, what we need to do next. So stay tuned for more details on that, hopefully. But like I said, I know there's already some chatter out there about that, and I just wanted to, in case you're seeing it, kind of give you a little bit of, you know, firsthand knowledge. So any questions, I'm happy to talk about it either now or offline. So thanks, that's it from me.
Okay. The Grand Junction Task Group, many years ago, I went to literally few enough meetings because of time availability or lack of availability that you could count on the fingers of one hand and have some left over. But certainly remained heavily involved in a lot of discussions with a lot of the people. And I agree with totally what you were indicating, that it was not by accident or an oversight that there was no thematic discussion, as much as there was more a discussion about high quality and toothing things together that may be different but can work. Because I certainly don't want to have somebody say, oh yeah, Westfield's that place that looks like whatever. I think being a little bit hard to describe probably has some benefits to it. But that it's got to be well done, attractive, with, you know, good materials, a lot of things that are thought out, and I think they'll speak for themselves and be very attractive without actually having to everybody do Georgian architecture or whatever it is that you consider Fishers to be, or, you know, anything that can be compartmentalized, I think could be detrimental to trying to foster some of the growth that we're really looking to get now. And to the business study, hopefully that can happen relatively quickly, because if it's like the end of the year, as we're finally getting an economy that's rolling again, and we can all go out and have meetings with a lot of us actually in the building under less stringent conditions. We're probably having a lot of business folks that are looking to do things as well, and I wouldn't want to miss an opportunity because we have to tell them, I think I'll be able to figure out where we can put you in 6 months. We need to be able to figure that out when the potential clients are here at our doorstep. So, I mean,
Yeah, that's-
preaching to the choir here.
That's certainly my hope, that we can do this soon and quickly, right?
But do it well, and
But-
that it'll last
exactly.
for some period of time, that we won't suddenly then have a crush of activity and then unhappiness about, well, I didn't realize there was gonna be this. So, yeah, it's gonna be fun. I was very involved in the current comp plan and all the previous amendments. I think they all work together pretty well, so I'm not lacking any confidence that we can't do it again. So, any other plant commissioners have comments to bring to the attention of the group here?
Can I add something into this discussion?
Sure.
Well, for a number of years now, actually, I've really been wanting to have us more holistically address our comp plan. And I know that we've had addendums and what I kind of consider more sub-area plans, if you will, just in my mind. But with the different pressures we face on our borders, with the changing economy, with, you know, this North Point thing and business parks and all that conversation is brought up, we're just facing a whole lot of things that when I look back in our comp plan, it doesn't really reflect to me, you know, a lot of these challenges and how we address them now moving forward. And so I know that I've asked for the money for next year to review our comp plan. And that's been my request, to start that effort next year, to have it in the budget for next year and potentially start planning this year to do more than just look for a business park spot. I mean, with that comes a lot of other issues and what goes around that. You know, I just don't believe that we can pull out one sector and identify one area and plop it in, you know, because it all interacts together. And we have all these other facets, in my mind, that we need to look at again. And this is just my opinion, but I've been vocal about it, so I wanted to do that again.
Okay, thank you. Any other member comments? Cindy or John, is there a update on council activities that we should know about?
We had a short meeting last week. The council did pass ordinance 2105, the Wheeler Landing, and approved that 7-0 vote. So that was held very positively by the council. The only other thing we did, which has an impact on this body, is ordinance 2112. We amended ordinance 6-02, which allowed the council president to serve on the APC. I'm here today. And it also allows the president of the APC to serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals. So that is something to keep in mind for the future. So other than that, we had a brief discussion in new business on looking at the Monon crossings, and Jeremy Lawler is doing a study with respect to possibly reducing speed limits at all the Monon crossings, and to see whether that makes sense or not. And that was our council meeting.
Good, thank you. There wasn't a BZA meeting in between last meeting and now, right?
Correct.
So you probably don't have a report?
No, just motion to adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. We have a second. Dave Schmitz and you, Randy Graham. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody foolish enough to be opposed? We are adjourned.